After negotiating with Han Fei, the black-robed man continued to absorb the death energy. Han Fei watched the magnificent death energy crazily enter a small bottle in the black-robed man's hand. Every hour, he had to change a small bottle. Although Han Fei had a lot of questions, he felt that if he asked them, he would seem ignorant. For example, why did the Immortal Temple go to war everywhere? Why did they absorb so much death energy? Why did the crazily killing undead creatures have the same goal as the Void Temple and the Time Temple? More importantly, the Immortal Temple had been fighting everywhere. Everyone in the 5 divine realms was annoyed by them. Logically speaking, they should have worked together to destroy the undead. Why didn't anyone take action? He would ask these questions to his senior brothers and sisters at the next gathering. Perhaps Chu Hao knew something, so he said to Chu Hao, "What's the purpose of the Immortal Temple being so obsessed with war?" Chu Hao said, "Even you, who are from the 3 temples, don't know it. How can an outsider like me know?" However, since the Immortal Temple can be ranked as one of the 3 temples, there must be a reason. The people of the world know very little about the 3 temples, and especially know the least about the immortal temples in the 3 temples. Although they are the most active, they are also the most mysterious. This is because they live in a different world from those who are still alive. Han Fei nodded slightly and said, "Well, do you know about the Void World?" Chu Hao glanced at Han Fei. "Didn't you just use it?" Han Fei said, "It's one thing to use it, but it's another thing to figure it out. I don't know if the Void World is my unique comprehension or it's a space that everyone can enter." Chu Hao pondered for a moment and said, "The prerequisite to enter the Void World is that you have to walk the great Tao of space and comprehend the law of space to have a certain chance of comprehending it. Therefore, not everyone can enter the Void World. It's considered the exclusive space of a few people. That person from your Void Temple should know best. He's the strongest person known to be in the Void Tao." Han Fei's heart stirred. Is he talking about eldest senior brother? He suspected that this Void World was the 3rd way after his speed reached the speed of light. Above the white cave space, there was a step. Han Fei didn't know where that step led to, but it might be this Void World. Of course, he wouldn't take the initiative to try now. It was better to ask directly. What if his guess was wrong? If he rashly entered the step, the outcome might be different. As the black-robed man collected the death energy, he was bathed in the extremely rich death energy. Han Fei and Chu Hao didn't like it, so they didn't have much interaction with this person. On the 3rd day, the black-robed man absorbed all the death energy here and then disappeared. On the same day, Han Fei was dragging a star core into reality, so that human cultivators could better absorb the energy here. Suddenly, his heart did a flip as he looked not far away. The black-robed man came out of the darkness, and he said telepathically, 100 billion ultra-quality spiritual stones have been prepared. I hope we can be honest with each other next time we cooperate." Han Fei sneered. "Take off your cloak and tell me your name, and then I'll think you're honest with me." The black-robed man heaved a long sigh. "I'm from the Immortal Temple. It's a little inappropriate not to have a cloak. As for my name, you can call me Yi Chi. This is the first cooperation between the Void Temple and the Immortal Temple after many years. It's extremely meaningful. The 100 billion ultra-quality spiritual stones shows our sincerity. I look forward to working with You again in the future. With that, the man took a step back and the door of darkness disappeared. The black-robed man must have left temporarily. A refined star was floating in midair. Han Fei extended his hand and waved in the air, and the refined star flew over automatically. Han Fei spread out his perception and found that the refined star was almost made of ultra-quality spiritual stones. Hiss. Is the immortal temple really so rich? 100 billion has been transferred to my account so quickly? Did I demand too little? While Han Fei was thinking, Han Xian came. As soon as he arrived, he said, "Can you hang this star core in the sky? If you put it here, it will affect the construction of the city." Han Fei nodded. "Okay, I'm hanging it up." Han Fei put away this refined star. It was meaningless to distribute resources to everyone. However, since the breakthrough tide was coming, this amount of resources was quite enough to meet everyone's breakthrough needs. A moment later, Han Fei was setting up an array with the law of gravity and hanging the star core above the human race. Suddenly, the void cracked without any warning. Before Han Fei had time to react, he saw a rough-looking old man with flying hair and bulging muscles appear above the human race. This person didn't hide his appearance, so the Beast King, Chu Hao, the two elders of the Lava Giant tribe, and Lu Qianxi immediately rushed over. The person who could appear here without a sound couldn't be simple. However, when they looked at this person, their hearts couldn't help but tremble. They felt that their bodies were trembling slightly. The absolute force field emitted by this person made them clearly sense that they were definitely not his match. Han Fei had seen a lot of big scenes. Obviously, only a great monarch level powerhouse could have this kind of invisible vibe that could suppress everyone, so he immediately prepared to activate the void mark. But Han Fei didn't panic. 2 great monarchs had died here in a row. He believed that the other party wouldn't attack indiscriminately. Han Fei cupped his hands. "Greetings, Senior, I'm Han Fei. May I ask who you are?" The old man looked at Han Fei up and down in surprise. "Your physique is not bad. Boy, are you interested in being my disciple?" "Well..." Han Fei was dumbfounded. "Are you kidding me? I'm a disciple of the Void Temple. Who are you?" Han Fei said calmly, "I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you, Senior. I've already entered the Void Temple. How can I be someone else's disciple?" The old man snorted and didn't seem to care. It seemed that he was just asking casually. He said, "I heard that your culinary skills are unparalleled in the Sea realm?" Han Fei? Han Fei couldn't help being curious. Who spread this information? The old man waved his hand, and a little fatty appeared beside him. **T. Han Fei's eyelids twitched, and he shouted in shock, "Quang Quang?" Lu Renquang didn't seem to react too quickly. When he took a closer look, his eyes immediately lit up. He roared and rushed over. "Fei Fei. I miss you so much. You have no idea how hard my life has been all these years." Lu Renquang rushed over and gave Han Fei a bear hug. Han Fei also laughed. He really didn't expect that Lu Renquang would arrive only 3 days after the battle. It turned out that a great monarch had personally brought him here. Didn't this mean that this guy was lucky enough to directly become a disciple of a great monarch? Besides, Lu Renquang's current strength made him sigh. He had already reached the perfected star transformation realm, and it wasn't very stable. It seemed That he could prove Tao at any time. When he was separated from them, Lu Renquang hadn't opened the sky yet. It could be seen that this guy's cultivation speed over the years was no slower than his. Han Fei also gave Lu Renquang a bear hug. You're suffering my ass. You're even about to prove Tao, and you're complaining about your life being hard? The others will be so envious of you. That's right. I'm just honing you. You useless disciple doesn't know what's good for you. Lu Renquang chuckled. I'm just kidding. Master, don't take it seriously. Hey. Master, didn't you say that it would take at least half a month to reach the East Sea Divine Realm? Why have you arrived in only 3 days? The old man snorted. East Marshal isn't blocking our way, so we're naturally fast. Otherwise, we would have to fight at least a few battles to cross the East Sea from the North Sea. Lu Renquang said, Master, don't keep thinking about fighting to solve problems in other people's territory. Master, let me introduce him. This is my brother, Han Fei. His culinary skills are unparalleled in the world. Look, his cultivation speed is also terrifying. After that, Lu Renquang looked at Han Fei. I thought I could catch up with you, but you've already proven your Tao and launched such a shocking battle. Why didn't you call us over to help? Han Fei said, I just attacked when I should. Who knows where you are? By the way, did you come from the West Sea Divine Realm? Just now, the old man mentioned crossing the North Sea and entering the East Sea. Obviously, he was not from these 2 divine realms. If it was the South Sea Divine Realm or the Central Sea Divine Realm, they didn't have to cross the North Sea. Therefore, they could only come from the West Sea Divine Realm. Lu Renquang nodded quickly. I came when I heard the cicada sound. We're already very fast. I didn't expect the battle to end so quickly. Huh? The humans have already come out? Is this, all of them? Han Fei nodded. Yes, all of them. Han Fei was also shocked. It only took them 3 days to cross 2 divine realms in a row. Sure enough, the strength of a great monarch-level powerhouse couldn't be calculated with common sense. Fortunately, he didn't really fight the 10,000 scale monarch before. Otherwise, even if he had the divine tribulations, he might not be able to touch the other party. Only then did Han Fei look at the others and say, you can disperse now. Go about your business. It's fine here. Everyone who was shocked had long wanted to leave. Who would be willing to stay with a ferocious great monarch? In the blink of an eye, only Han Fei, Lu Renquang, and the old man were left. Han Fei smiled casually. Senior, if you don't mind, why don't we talk while eating? The old man nodded slightly. You're smart. I didn't come all the way here in vain. Serve me all the good liquor and dishes you have. The more, the better. Han Fei secretly smiled bitterly. Another foodie. Did Lu Renquang become his disciple because of delicious food? Several hours passed. Activating the void descending technique, Han Fei transformed into 108 figures and started to cook a Man-Han full banquet. This time, not only the old man, but even Lu Renquang was dumbfounded. Lu Renquang shouted, Fei Fei. Why didn't you show this trick before? With so many different dishes, you tricked us into eating hot pot every day? Han Fei sneered. How many stomachs do you have? 1 dish can't feed you to death, and you want to eat 108? Smack. The old man slapped Lu Renquang's head. Ha ha ha, my disciple didn't lie to me. Sure enough, there is really such a person with superb culinary skills in this world. Hurry up and learn it. Have you remembered all these 108 dishes? Especially the heat and seasonings. Remember them well. I'll rely on you for my food in the future. Lu Renquang was amused. Am I your disciple or your personal chef? It didn't matter what Lu Renquang thought in his heart, but on the surface, he could only put on a smile. Alas! Teacher, I'm now a perfected star. Transformation realm powerhouse anyway. I've remembered everything. Don't worry. At this moment, while dealing with his master, Lu Renquang leaned close to Han Fei and said, Fei Fei, when did you enter the Void Temple? If I had known, the 5 of us should have long destroyed the 10,000 scale race together. Then, we can sweep across the sea realm together and kill whoever we want to kill. But now, we're far away from each other. I don't even know where Xiao Bai and you are. Han Fei said, what do I cultivate for if I rely on the Void Temple for everything? It's not as simple as you think. Hey, wait, Quang Quang, you speak quite like a bandit now. Sweep across the sea realm together and kill whoever we want to kill. I never saw you so enthusiastic about robbing before. The old man who was waiting for the dishes to be served snorted. You call him a bandit? I think he's useless. He's never enthusiastic about fighting and only likes eating. Disciple, learn from him. Your brother is so murderous. Countless people have died by his hands. If you can learn from him, when you go to cut people in the future, you can be intimidating too. Han Fei was speechless. What kind of master is this? He's already a great monarch, and he's still talking about cutting people? Buzz. While Han Fei and Lu Renquang were chatting, the void fluctuated again. The old man narrowed his eyes and looked up, only to see a drunkard with the same messy hair and a calabash in his hand. A great monarch? Hiss. Zhang Shaoling? Lu Renquang's master shivered and screamed, why are you here? 5th senior brother laughed. My little junior brother is here. Why can't I be here? Alas, little junior brother, you treat outsiders better than your own senior brother. If I hadn't smelled it, I wouldn't have known that you had so many special skills. Han Fei wasn't surprised at all. He certainly didn't make this grand feast just for Lu Renquang's master. After all, he didn't have much confidence to speak to such a great monarch level powerhouse. Therefore, he might as well attract 5th senior brother over so that he could talk to Lu Renquang. As soon as 5th senior brother sat down, Han Fei immediately became confident. 5th senior brother laughed and said, Old John, it's been a long time since we last met. You were a bandit back then, but now you're still a bandit even though you've become a great monarch. The guy called Old John curled his lips. This is my hobby. You know what kind of place the West Wilderness is. If the locals of the West Wilderness don't become bandits, it might have long been flattened by the other divine realms. It's just that I didn't expect you to be from the Void Temple. Ha ha ha. It's not too late to know. Come on, since you're here, you're a guest. Come to my place for a few glasses. My junior brother and your disciple haven't seen each other for a long time. Let them play by themselves. Old John also said quickly, okay. Then you have to bring out more good wine. You can't use inferior wine to deal with me. Old John shouted at Lu Renquang, "You can stay here for half a month. We can't be out too long, or our brothers will be killed. We have to go back in half a month." "Okay. Master, take your time drinking and eating." After that, fifth senior brother activated the teleportation channel and left with Old John. What was taken away together was naturally the Han full banquet Han Fei made. After they left, Han Fei and Lu Renquang were both relieved. Han Fei asked, "Where is your master from?" Even though he has restrained his strength, his force field is still very intimidating. Lu Renquang smiled bitterly. "Yes, I'm often suffocated by this force field. My teacher, Zhang Nani, is one of the strongest strength-type cultivators known to date. His law of strength can suppress all techniques. Look at my physique. Because of his training, it's no problem for me to resist a mid-quality godly weapon now." Han Fei raised his eyebrows. "A strength-type cultivator? Is the law of strength so strong?" "Of course, I had the same idea as you at first. But my teacher said that strength, as one of the longest existing and most eternal powers in this world, should never be underestimated. Strength can break all laws and suppress the heavens. It's one of the strongest paths in the world." "Interesting." Han Fei could understand what Lu Renquang said, that strength existed in the myriad worlds, all movements and even non-movement objects. He was a body refiner, so he knew that the great Tao of strength had once helped him a lot. His physique, that could fight across realms, and his ability to fight monarchs as a mere sky-opener were bestowed to him by the great Tao of strength. From the looks of it, the more primitive and simpler a great Tao like the great Tao of strength, the stronger it would be as time went by. When fighting cultivators of the same realm, those who cultivated the great Tao of strength had extremely strong physiques, so it was very difficult for them to be killed by the other party. Han Fei sat upright in the sky with Lu Renquang, looking down at the human race. Han Fei asked, "Why did you come to the West Wilderness and take this person as your master?" Upon hearing this, Lu Renquang heaved a long sigh. "Maybe it was luck. After separating from you and Xiaobai, I was going to a place called the Floating City in the East Sea Divine Realm. However, something happened on the way and I was chased into a dangerous place. I thought I would definitely die, but I was sent away by an altar in the dangerous place, because I had comprehended the great Tao of strength. When I woke up, I was already in the West Wilderness. The teleportation altar, could you send you so far away?" Han Fei had been to the Divine Capital Dynasty and knew very well how big a divine realm was. To cross a divine realm to reach the West Wilderness, this dangerous place was probably not simple. Lu Renquang said, "I woke up in a bandit's den, so I could only become a bandit." Han Fei didn't know what to say. This might be king opportunity. But why? Was his opportunity always so difficult to obtain? And Lu Renquang's opportunity was obtained by taking a nap? It was simply unfair. Since Lu Renquang had returned, Han Fei naturally took him back to the Thug Academy. No matter what their identities were now, the Thug Academy would always be home. It would be strange if they didn't go home after coming all the way back. Of course, the only people who were familiar with them at home were the two old men, Wang Dashui, Chu Jinnan, Yi Xian, and other little guys. Han Fei wasn't familiar with the others, so there was no need to gather them. Half a month passed in the blink of an eye. Lu Renquang's return was like a family visit. He would leave sooner or later. On this day, Old Bai took Lu Renquang's hand and said, "Little fatty, I know that there must be a deeper meaning for Han Fei to try so hard to make the human race stronger. He didn't say it, but I also heard some rumors that it seems to have something to do with something ominous. Although you are now a first-class super cultivator, you have to remember that you are a human being. After all, and the human race is your home." Lu Renquang listened with tears streaming down his face and said solemnly, "President, I remember. You were the one who picked me up back then. Because of you, I met Fei Fei and the others, so the human race is ultimately my home. President, don't worry. I will definitely return in the future." Old Bai nodded. "Okay. Go. Learn your skills well. Don't slack off. Don't be sloppy. Don't think you're something just because you're about to prove Tao. Even Han Fei is still a child in my eyes, understood?" "Yes, yes." Jean Nani watched this scene with interest, and the corners of his mouth occasionally curled up slightly. It wasn't until he left with Lu Renquang that he said leisurely, "Phew, brat, your tears are flowing. Why? Am I not your family? The human race is your home, but my bandit den is not." Lu Renquang was speechless. "Alas, teacher, what are you talking about?" Of course, it's my home too. But I'm still a human after all. The human race is from my hometown. If you'd like, you can come to the human race with me too. Enjoy your retirement when you're old." "Huh? With your timid temper, you can't even cut people. By the time you take care of me in my old age, I'm afraid the ominous will have swept across the sea realm several times." Lu Renquang rolled his eyes. "Teacher, stop bickering. I'm still very outstanding. I'm going to prove my Tao when I go back." "Huh?" Jean Nani raised his eyebrows. "Haven't you been stalling proving Tao? Why? Have you stopped stalling it after coming to the East Sea Divine Realm?" Lu Renquang said, "Fei Fei has already won this battle. Although I didn't take action, the human race has won. Now that I have nothing to worry about, it's time for me to prove my Tao." Jean Nani was overjoyed. "Okay, then let's hurry back." The next day after Lu Renquang left. Human race. 20 days after entering the chaotic wasteland, some children of the human race felt uncomfortable almost at the same time. Han Fei was setting up the spirit gathering array in the city, and Han Yu came in a hurry. "Master Human Emperor, something bad has happened. Come and take a look." Han Fei frowned. "What's wrong? What can happen with me here?" Han Yu hurriedly said, "The children at the fishing master level are all unwell, and many of them are losing their vitality. This doesn't seem to be the breakthrough tide we expected." Han Fei scanned with his perception. In the camps of the human race, there were indeed a large number of children whose bodies were seriously red and hot, their breathing was rapid, and their vitality dissipated. Han Fei frowned slightly. He had actually expected these phenomena. In the new environment, they had to adapt to this change. This was the autonomous evolution of the human body. He estimated that it would start half a month after the war. Now it had only been delayed for 3 days, which was similar to what he had expected. However, the physique and bloodline of many children from the raging sea were not enough for them to deal with such rapid evolution, so at this moment, there were abnormal signs from the weakest children. Han Fei's voice covered the human race. "Managers, gather all the children. Under the age of 12 in my place immediately. Hurry. At this moment, all the cultivators above the sky-opening realm knew that the human race's breakthrough tide had begun. The strong masters under Han Xian's rule, with the venerables as the main force, showed great efficiency at this moment. For a time, the venerables were rampant in the sky above the human race. Dad, I feel so hot. I can't breathe. It's okay, it's okay. You have to believe Master Human Emperor. He will definitely save you. Lord Venerable, here, here. My daughter is dying. Swish. The father shouted and ran, but the girl in his hand disappeared with a swish. He didn't even see the person who took the girl away. On the other side, a young man covered his chest with one hand and supported himself on the ground with the other. He seemed to be struggling. I can do it. Master Human Emperor will protect me. I'm just making a breakthrough and becoming stronger. Swish. The boy only saw a flash of light in front of his eyes. Then, he felt that he was pushed by a huge force and instantly flew thousands of kilometers away. Because human beings had just arrived in the chaotic wasteland and the city hadn't been built yet, everyone lived in groups. Besides, the chaotic wasteland was airless, and above the ice was not an area where these children could step foot. Therefore, basically, people below the dangling fisher realm gathered together and lived in the water for a long time under the protection of a large array. Therefore, it was relatively convenient for venerables to take action. In just half an hour, nearly 3 billion youths were gathered. Although Han Fei could use the Heaven Enlightenment divine technique to save people, there were too many people. If he used the Heaven Enlightenment divine technique, the effect would be immediate. However, his consumption would probably be huge. Therefore, Han Fei immediately sat cross-legged in the void and preached. Han Fei's voice was like a god's voice, ethereal, but shocking. There are spirits in the world, and all things are energy. When you swallow spirits, you swallow energy, causing your qi and blood to ignite. Spontaneously absorbing spiritual energy into your body, dispersing dirt into the surface of your bodies, and breathing impurities into your mouth and nose. This was just a heaven-level, high-quality swallowing technique, but it was transmitted out of Han Fei's mouth in a mystic voice as if it was imprinted in the minds of these youths. Upon hearing this, almost all the youths subconsciously began to direct the spiritual energy outside into their bodies, burning the impurities in their bodies by burning their essence blood. Of course, these youths were not geniuses, but Han Fei didn't need all of them to understand this technique. As long as they could use this technique to hold out for several hours, they could make a breakthrough. Once they made a breakthrough, the crisis would be resolved. Soon, more and more youths were sent over. In the end, 13 billion people were sent over, accounting for about 9% of the entire human race. This number was not out of Han Fei's expectations. In terms of the population ratio of a race, this was actually relatively small. Faced with this, Han Fei felt that he should implement a policy to encourage fertility in the future. At the very least, the proportion of teenagers should reach about 15% before it reached a reasonable age distribution of the population. During this period, Han Fei just repeatedly taught the method of swallowing to others through sermons. More and more people rushed over to watch. When the parents who were anxious arrived, they found that the hot and unconscious teenagers were all sitting cross-legged and breathing. Above this place, spiritual energy was surging like a tide. Among them, there were hundreds of millions of ultra-quality spiritual stones which turned into dozens of long dragons and swam in the sky. From time to time, spiritual energy escaped from them and was sucked into the bodies of the teenagers who were making breakthroughs below. After about half an hour, among the children sitting cross-legged, there were continuous cracking sounds. It was the sound of breakthroughs, like the firecrackers on the spring festival night. After about half an hour, this continuous sound of breakthrough had reached everyone's ears. Everyone who came to watch swallowed. Is this the so-called breakthrough tide of the human race? In less than 20 days, there are actually so many children who can make a breakthrough? Someone said, the human emperor has long reminded us that the breakthrough tide is coming. It's not just these children. We're going to make a breakthrough too. It's just that they're weak, so they were the first batch to be modified by this world. Once these children make a breakthrough, it won't be long before we make a breakthrough too. I don't doubt it, but this scene is really too spectacular. Among these youths, there was no lack of youths who had not woken up after the breakthrough but continued to cultivate. 1 hour, 2 hours. It wasn't until the 6th hour that the intense breakthrough sound slowed down. And the youths who had already made a breakthrough didn't dare to move at this moment. Instead, they sat cross-legged in place obediently and continued to listen to the same mystic sound of Master Human Emperor. Finally, after 6 hours, the breakthrough tide was gradually coming to an end. There were more than 13 billion people in total, and at this moment, more than 9 billion youths had successfully made a breakthrough. After all, most of them were only fishing masters, and there were still a few fishers. The spiritual energy resources they needed were limited. Although there were as many as 13 billion people in total, they didn't need Han Fei to provide additional spiritual energy resources. It just needed to attract spiritual energy with the spirit gathering array. When 9 billion people made the breakthrough, the subsequent breakthroughs gradually slowed down. About 6 hours later, there were only less than 100 million people left who hadn't made a breakthrough. And these children did have some physique problems. There were some small problems with the spiritual heritage of the few children. This time, Han Fei was not stingy. He raised his hands, and the divine brilliance covered all these children, which only cost him 1,000 years of vitality. In less than 30 seconds, the remaining youths completed the last collective breakthrough. Huff. Han Fei was slightly relieved to see that everybody made the breakthrough. Unscathed. As for the onlookers, most of them held their breath and waited here for a full 6 hours. Only at this moment did they burst into violent cheers. Human Emperor, Human Emperor, Human Emperor. Han Fei didn't disappoint them. Everyone was smiling and excited. In fact, they knew that sacrifices might be necessary to adapt to the new environment. Many people never thought that all these teenagers could survive. They only felt that it was already very rare that 70 or 80% of them could survive safely. After all, there were too many people. Even if Han Fei had already proved Tao, how could he help these tens of billions of children alone? Therefore, this result shocked countless people. Taking the opportunity to collect another wave of power of faith, Han Fei finally said, "My fellow human beings, the breakthrough tide of the human race is about to begin from this moment on. This is a breakthrough for everyone. If I've guessed right, every person, and I mean every person, may have at least one breakthrough. Today's breakthrough is not the last one for these children. Such a breakthrough may happen several more times in the next 3 years, and as their strength improves and they adapt to the new environment, there won't be such an urgent situation as today in the future. As for the others, you need to be prepared immediately. Now, fishing masters or great fishing masters above the age of 12 should gather quickly to prevent similar situations from happening again. As soon as Han Fei gave the order, some venerables immediately returned to the camp under their control and began to integrate the population. 1 year later, Zhang Ting was making some strange postures with difficulty in the small yard of 3 or 5 square meters outside the hut he was assigned to. At this time, a group of youths hurriedly passed by. One of them saw that Zhang Ting was still cultivating, so he stopped and greeted him. Zhang Ting, do you forget what day it is today? Why are you still cultivating the 108 desolate god body? Zhang Ting grinned. Of course not, but Master Human Emperor didn't say anything. Why are you in such a hurry? The young man said, there won't be any seats if we're any slower. This is the human race's spirit gathering day. God knows how many people will make breakthroughs today. Shouldn't we find a place to prepare? Zhang Ting nodded. I know. You go first. I'll finish the last 20 movements. Fine, take your time. Zhang Ting was so tired that he was sweating profusely, and large beads of sweat dripped from the tip of his nose. He knew that everything that happened to the human race today was not easy to come by. He had only been assigned this hut for 3 days, and there were still many people who hadn't been assigned a hut yet. As for the 108 desolate god body he was cultivating, it was a body tempering technique that Master Human Emperor had been cultivating since he was young. Although there were better body tempering techniques now, there were still many people who cultivated the 108 desolate god body. They more or less had the idea of following the Human Emperor's footsteps. Of course, there weren't many people who could persist in the end, mainly because this body tempering technique was too tiring. Besides, ordinary people didn't have the resources to temper their bodies. But Zhang Ting was enjoying it. In just 1 year, he had made 3 small breakthroughs in a row, and it had been more than 2 months since his last breakthrough. He had a feeling that he would definitely break through to be a dangling fisher today. He knew that someone had even made 2 big breakthroughs in a row in this year, which he couldn't compare to. Some people chose the cultivation techniques that made them stronger, quickly, and only a few chose body refining. There were only 2 or 3 people he knew who were still persevering with this technique. Zhang Ting believed that as long as he worked hard and improved step by step, he would be countless times stronger than when he was in the raging sea. He didn't want to pursue speedy cultivation techniques. He wanted to be like the Human Emperor, slowly moving up step by step. After doing these 20 movements, Zhang Ting simply packed up, took his only half ultra-quality spiritual stone, and quickly ran to the center of the city. This half ultra-quality spiritual stone was his reward for breaking through a major realm. Ever since the Human Emperor issued the rules of cultivation rewards, he had introduced a reward plan for everyone below the hidden fisher realm. Anyone who broke through a major realm would be rewarded with an ultra-quality spiritual stone, and 2 if they broke through 2 major realms. With hope in his eyes, Zhang Ting carefully stuffed the half ultra-quality spiritual stone into his arms and walked towards the center of the city. Due to the population, the human race now had 361 cities built together, with An average population of 500 million people in each city. People lived very densely. For example, the small house of the Zhang family only occupied an area of about 20 square meters. Half an hour later, the huge square with the statue of the human emperor at the center of the city was already overcrowded. The per capita area was not even half a square meter. After all, today was the human race's spirit gathering day. Everyone needed to sit cross-legged and cultivate. Otherwise, they wouldn't even have such a small area per capita. Zhang Ting came late, so he could only find a place to sit cross-legged outside. Even so, the area he occupied didn't exceed 2 square meters. Everyone, male or female, old or young, was sitting cross-legged quietly, waiting for Han Fei to speak. As for Han Fei, he had just finished setting up the arrays in the city today, when he was pulled over by Han Xian. Han Fei asked, "Uncle Xian, what's up?" Han Xian smiled. It's been a full year since the human race migrated to the raging sea, and it's finally settled down. The first round of breakthroughs should have passed. Are you sure the second round will come? Han Fei said, theoretically, yes, but many of the weaker ones may have made breakthroughs more than once, so it doesn't matter to them whether there is a second round or not. The second round I mean is for the strong masters above the law enforcer realm. Han Xian nodded. Take a look at this report. The results are remarkable. Han Fei took a jade slip handed over by Han Xian. When he took a closer look, his eyes lit up. In just a year, our human race has increased by 20 million. Venerables? Han Xian said, don't be happy too early. Most of the 20 million venerables have already reached the peak of the explorer realm in the raging sea. Therefore, it's unlikely for such a large-scale advancement to happen again. This number shouldn't appear again in the future. Logically speaking, it will take at least 10 years to achieve a breakthrough of this scale even in the chaotic wasteland. Han Fei nodded slightly and continued to read. According to the report, the human race had a total population of 180.6 billion, including only one monarch. That was Han Fei. Gu Tingnan was from the City of Wanderers and wasn't counted in. There were a total of 592 people in the sky-opening realm, most of whom were peak-level sea establishment cultivators in the 7-kill army. Because they had taken revenge, their Dao hearts were strengthened and they could naturally open the sky. Besides, if nothing went wrong, the number of people in the sky-opening realm should soon reach 1,000 in the next few decades. As for the lava giants, they weren't counted in by Han Xian, but it was also recorded that there were a total of 4,792 sky-opening realm cultivators in the lava giant race. At the sea establishment realm, there were even more people. The sea establishers from the raging sea, those of the 7-kill army, and those from the chaotic wasteland totaled the number of 90,000. And now there were people breaking through to be sea establishers every day. This statistic was only temporary, and in decades, it would probably be a different situation. As for the number of venerables, it could be described as a spike. They were mainly peak-level explorers and half-step venerables from the raging sea who had broken through to be venerables. In the raging sea, everyone clearly didn't know enough about the way forward. Han Xian had scattered the human race and integrated the human race from the chaotic wasteland into the human race from the raging sea. Some new theories enlightened countless people from the raging sea. As a result, in just a year, the number of venerables soared by more than 20 million. If nothing unexpected happened, the number could double in 3 years, exceeding 60 million. As for the explorers, there were 15 billion of them. Han Fei didn't even bother to look at those below the explorer realm. To his relief, there was no one in the fisher realm anymore. Even fishing masters had basically disappeared in the past year. Grand Fishing Master, on the other hand, had become the lowest level of strength. The Grand Fishing Masters that Han Fei yearned for when he was in the Heavenly Water Village had now become a disgrace to the human race. All the young people were trying their best to become dangling fishers as soon as possible. Han Fei looked at the report for a while and nodded. There are a lot more strong masters, but it's still not enough. Han Xian looked at Han Fei speechlessly. Did you understand it or not? Han Fei? Seeing Han Fei's puzzled face, Han Xian rolled his eyes and said, Do you know what this data represents? It means that the overall strength of the human race has crossed a level in the past year. This is a great achievement that the human race hasn't been able to achieve in the raging sea in 100,000 years. In just a year, the strength of the human race has doubled. After the spirit gathering array in the 361 cities is completed, in at most 10 years, the average strength of the human race will definitely take another qualitative leap. Han Fei said, the number of strong masters is actually still too few. Cultivation takes time. It's still too difficult to catch up with the native races in the sea realm in decades. Han Xian waved his hand and said, **T. Are you really the human emperor? How can you know nothing? This is the first time the spirit gathering array has been activated on an experimental basis. It can only last for half an hour at most. It still needs to be adjusted according to the effect of this time. It will probably take at least 4 or 5 years to complete it completely, but people need more and more resources before the spirit gathering array is fully established. According to this breakthrough tide, at least 50 star cores and 100 million ultra-quality spiritual stones will be consumed in a city every year. Are you sure you can afford it? The corners of Han Fei's mouth twitched. For the time being, I can hold on. But after today, I won't care about the city's spirit gathering arrays. I have to consolidate my cultivation and then go find resources. Han Xian nodded. Yes, the beginning is the most difficult. It took you a year. I didn't expect you to offer so many resources. Han Fei said, in fact, the energy crystals are not completely unusable. As long as one's foundation is solid, he can use them occasionally. The effect is quite good. Han Xian said, this is already being tracked and tested. At present, I've arranged for 100,000 people to try it. It won't be promoted until we figure out the best usage conditions. Don't worry about it. Han Fei nodded quickly. Okay. Then go about your business, Uncle Xian. After bidding farewell to Han Xian, Han Fei happily prepared to make a speech. It was simply blissful to have an extremely smart and capable person who could help him deal with human affairs. In terms of fighting, Han Fei was naturally a top-notch player. If he used all his strength to manage a race, he felt that he should be able to do it. However, once he did this, it meant sacrificing all his time. Especially in the early stages of the rise of the human race, there were too many things to do. It was said that Han Xian now had nearly 1,000 people as his think tank, but he was still busy every day. Han Fei casually stepped onto a huge city. He didn't let anyone see him, but looked at the sea of people and sighed in his heart. These people were all his men. No matter what, he had to make them rise. At that moment, Han Fei's voice sounded in the sky above the 361 cities of the human race. My fellow human beings, I am Human Emperor Han Fei. Today is an important day for the human race in the sea realm. To meet the cultivation needs of the human race, I've led my people to build 361 cities. With the cities as the eye, I'll build a super spirit gathering array. Once this array succeeds, billions of human beings will be blessed. Today is the first trial operation of the spirit gathering array. It will only last for half an hour. My fellow human beings, please operate your cultivation techniques and use the techniques you are best at to welcome the spiritual energy tide. This time, no one shouted Master Human Emperor anymore, because everyone was very nervous. Many people were preparing to make a breakthrough today with the help of the spiritual energy tide. Han Fei shouted, all the human cities, activate the spirit gathering array. Now. Buzz. 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 Each giant city was controlled by a sky opener. As Han Fei gave the order, dense Tao patterns appeared in the sky above the 361 cities. The Tao patterns fused and formed the combination of countless layers of the spirit gathering array. The moment the spirit gathering array was activated, the spiritual energy between the heavens and earth surged crazily towards the area covered by the 361 cities. At the centers of the cities, the statues of the human emperor would first be impacted by the spiritual energy, and then the spiritual energy would disperse in all directions. Huff. Like a green light, it dispersed into layers of ripples. In less than 10 seconds, the humans in every city felt the terrifying spiritual energy that suddenly descended from the sky. Huff. Those who should make a breakthrough, prepare to make a breakthrough. Spiritual energy tides are rare. Don't waste it. Come on, let's absorb it together. There's only half an hour left. Don't waste it. Body cultivators can temper their bodies while circulating their techniques. All kinds of cheers rose and fell. At this moment, Zhang Ting was in a strange posture while circulating his cultivation technique. In just 20 seconds, Zhang Ting was already drenched, but he didn't dare to be negligent. The surging tide of spiritual energy was faster than what he absorbed directly from the ultra-quality spiritual stone. Hoop, hoop, hoop. Zhang Ting felt that his body was constantly burning, and a small spiritual energy vortex formed above his head. The surrounding people cast angry gazes at Zhang Ting because some of the spiritual energy above their heads had more or less been absorbed by Zhang Ting. This scene made Zhang Ting even more determined. He knew that he had made the right bet. Although some techniques were powerful and had a high upper limit, they were still not as good as the body tempering techniques that could help him improve step by step. Sure enough, body refinement is the foundation of strength. Everyone chooses a fast method, but I'll persist with body refinement. Master Human Emperor. You're right. Half an hour passed. Crack. 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 Sounds of breakthroughs came one after another. The sound of breakthroughs could be heard almost every 10 people. After half an hour, 5 or 6 people around Zhang Ting had already made a breakthrough, and one of them had even broken through a major realm. Only Zhang Ting was still absorbing spiritual energy crazily, but had not yet made a breakthrough. Someone who had completed a breakthrough said, "Boy, body refinement is very Resource-consuming. The human race is no longer the same as before. There are thousands of techniques in the sea realm, and Master Human Emperor has imparted 100,000 techniques. There are too many choices. Why are you still using the 108 desolate god body? Zhang Ting didn't listen. Since the spiritual vortex couldn't help him break the switch, he might as well use the ultra-quality spiritual stone. Buzz. On Zhang Ting's chest, the spiritual energy from the ultra-quality spiritual stone also crazily fused into his body. In less than 10 seconds, Zhang Ting was like a shrimp that had just come out of a steam pot, his whole body emitting billowing white smoke. Along with the white smoke, a lot of impurities were discharged. At this moment, Han Fei's voice appeared in the sky. My fellow humans, please note that the spirit gathering array is about to close in 10 seconds. 10. 9. Zhang Ting was panting hard. The spiritual energy in his body was surging like a tide, hitting the pass wave after wave. Roar. Break. Crack. Ha. Haha, I made it. Zhang Ting knelt on the ground with both hands on the ground, and the spiritual energy attracted by the spirit gathering array gradually disappeared. Someone said, boy, it's already so difficult for you to become a grand fishing master. There's still the dangling fisher, hanging fisher, hidden fisher, and law enforcer realm. Not everyone can cultivate body refining. You were lucky to pass a major realm this time, but what about next time? Hey! Boy, who doesn't want to walk the path of Master Human Emperor? The point is that ordinary people can't afford it. Crack. A cracking sound came from his chest. Zhang Ting knew that the ultra-quality spiritual stone was broken, which made his heart ache. For a moment, he wavered. But at this moment, a young man came to Zhang Ting and said casually, do you want to give up? No, this is the path I want to take. The young man chuckled. Interesting. I've been paying attention to you for a while. You're talented and have good perseverance. Hey, Zhang Ting, are you interested in joining our Thug Academy? Buzz. At that moment, Zhang Ting suddenly looked up. This time, the spirit gathering array worked very well, but in half an hour, it reached the upper limit of this array. While the human race was cultivating and making breakthroughs, Han Fei was drawing a map, recording the problems between the arrays, and quickly handed it to Han Xian. Half a day later, after discussing with Han Xian how to further perfect the city spirit gathering array, Han Fei was finally free. After a full year of work, he was finally free. After being liberated, Han Fei immediately found Chu Hao. It turned out that this guy was studying something with Beast King, Lu Qianxi, and a young woman. Swish. When Han Fei arrived, he didn't chat with Chu Hao, but looked at the young woman in surprise. Teacher, have you woken up? The teacher Han Fei was talking about was not the Beast King, but the water immortal. Before Han Fei left the raging sea, the water immortal hadn't completely transformed into a human form and didn't have any memories of her previous life. Now, it seemed that the water immortal had just advanced to the sea establishment realm and had clearly recovered her memories, so the Beast King came. The water immortal was now in her human form. After seeing Han Fei, she smiled. I just learned about the current situation. I didn't expect that the half-grown child who was only a hidden fisher had become the current human emperor and had even proved Dao. It seems that I missed a lot of things when I was sleeping. Han Fei smiled and said, they're all troubles. It's a good thing to miss them. Teacher, have your memories completely recovered? The water immortal nodded. My memories are restored, but my Tao in this life is different. The Beast King said, you established the sea too early. Otherwise, in the sea realm, there should be more paths for you to choose. Chu Hao said, it's fine. There's a chance to change before she opens the sky. Besides, since this girl has already been reborn, she must already have had a choice. Just let nature take its course. Lu Qianxi joined in the fun. For the Beast King and Han Fei, the awakening of the water immortal was a joyous thing and the revival of an old friend. For Lu Qianxi, he got to know another demon plant, and it was a reborn demon plant. Although the other party had just established the sea, her temperament really made him yearn for it. After they chatted for a while, Han Fei said, Teacher, you've just established the sea, so you should consolidate your strength. I have something to do now. I'll come to see you in a few days. The water immortal nodded slightly. You are now the human emperor and shoulder the future of billions of human beings. You don't have to waste time. Here. Go about your business. Han Fei said goodbye to the Beast King and the water immortal apologetically. Then looked at Chu Hao and said, I have something to ask you. A moment later, in a deserted place, Han Fei said, although the 10,000 scale monarch is dead, his origin star is still there. You are the closest great monarch to me. I want to ask if there will be any accidents and dangers on the origin star of a great monarch. Or will there be any consciousness of the 10,000 scale monarch left? Chu Hao took a deep look at Han Fei. Are you going to the origin star of the 10,000 scale monarch? Han Fei nodded. It was rare for him to have time. The first thing he wanted to do was not to consolidate his strength, but to pluck the origin stars of those monarchs. If he didn't pluck them now, the star sea giant beasts might grab them, and then he wouldn't have a chance to do so. Chu Hao paused and said, generally speaking, at the level of a great monarch, there might be some experimental products on their origin stars. Experiment with what? Chu Hao said, didn't the strong masters of your void temple tell you? Only after reaching the monarch realm, can you really try to create life? Han Fei said, I've just proved my Tao. I've been so busy this year that I haven't had the time to study this. Even sea establishers can create a life. Can't they? That's just a simulation. Even if they create a life, it will be a monster. Chu Hao said, you should know that there is a clear difference between the great monarch realm and the immortal level, right? Han Fei nodded. Chu Hao said, the great monarchs actually fuse a large number of Tao. In this realm, they comprehend the truth of the world and sense the life forms of all living beings. They pursue the divine path, which is the end of their own path. Ordinary people will try to create a kind of creature similar to their own race. In this way, they can explore their divine path through the evolution of natural creatures. Of course, there are some inventive people who will create some strange creatures that are not from their race or even haven't ever existed before. Han Fei asked, in other words, it's very likely that there are still 10,000 scale race people on the origin star of the 10,000 scale monarch? Chu Hao said, yes and no. These people are generally relatively weak. Their growth limit might only be the sea establishment realm or the sky opening realm. This is because the meaning of their existence is to help great monarch-level cultivators find their path. As long as a limit is set, they will inevitably simulate the growth path in reality. If someone takes the divine path in this experiment, it will be of great use. Han Fei raised his eyebrows. Even he was tempted by Chu Hao's words. It seemed that after sweeping through the origin stars of the 10,000 scale monarch and the others, he would have to try to create a race. That was probably why old Han didn't allow him to use the power of faith. Han Fei nodded slightly. I see. In any case, even if the origin star of the 10,000 scale monarch might be different, and even if he created a new race, they shouldn't be strong enough. Chu Hao nodded. That's right. After getting such a confirmation, Han Fei no longer hesitated. After separating from Chu Hao, he immediately came to the place where the 10,000 scale monarch died. He turned the vast ocean navigator in his hand. And a spatial node was discovered. Swish! When Han Fei appeared on the origin star of the 10,000 scale monarch, he scanned it with his perception. Just as Chu Hao had guessed, there were indeed creatures here, and there were billions of them. However, what shocked Han Fei most was not the existence of the 10,000 scale race here, but the origin star of the 10,000 scale monarch. It was bigger than he had expected. Logically speaking, the largest origin star was 810,000 kilometers, but the origin star of the 10,000 scale monarch was more than 10 million kilometers. To be precise, it had reached the level of 30 million kilometers. This was obviously abnormal. Han Fei didn't think that his origin star was already so big when the 10,000 scale monarch entered the star transformation realm. It could only be said that when one was strong enough, their origin star could actually expand. And the environment here was a simulation of the environment of the chaotic wasteland. It might have been intentional by the 10,000 scale monarch, who wanted the newborn 10,000 scale race to attempt extreme cultivation in the same environment. The purpose was to use the 10,000 scale race. Here's experiments to see where their limits were and what path they might take to confirm his cultivation path. Han Fei quickly found the strongest person here, a 10,000 scale race member who was at the peak level of the sea establishment realm. Yes, the peak level of the sea establishment realm was the limit of this place, and the sky opening realm might be the limit of their pursuit. Sky openers here were equivalent to the gods in the sea realm, perhaps the supreme existence in this world. Han Fei didn't destroy this race immediately. Anyway, they were all experimental products. Han Fei also wanted to see what the experiment of the 10,000 scale monarch was like. Han Fei grabbed a 10,000 scale race member in the venerable realm. This person was already a top powerhouse in this world. At this moment, when he was grabbed by Han Fei, he was sealed before he could even see who Han Fei was or what he looked like. Han Fei glanced around and immediately realized that something was wrong. The 10,000 scale race here was clearly different from the 10,000 scale race in the city of scavengers. Han Fei had once used the soul-controlling law seal to completely understand the 10,000 scale race, so he could directly tell that their bloodline and spiritual heritage were wrong. The only thing that matched was their physical bodies and meridians. After erasing the man's memory, Han Fei threw him back to his original spot. The man seemed to have had a dream and woke up with a jerk. Then, he breathed a sigh of relief and had a trace of joy. He probably felt that he might have had an epiphany just now, but it flashed past and then disappeared. Han Fei saw that this person continued to cultivate, and his cultivation Method didn't seem to be the same as the 10,000 scale races. Everything was created by the 10,000 scale monarch himself, including cultivation techniques. This means that they don't have the concept of the venerable realm or the sea establishment realm. Han Fei looked into the void and quickly found some cultivation records of this world. He raised his eyebrows. The venerable realm is equivalent to the sky-opening realm? The sea establishment realm is equivalent to the monarch realm? Han Fei's eyes lit up. The peak-level sea establisher he saw here was equivalent to a great monarch outside. In terms of identity, this person was on the same level as the 10,000 scale monarch in this world. Therefore, Han Fei simply came to the peak-level sea establisher. His name was Luo Hao, and he was cultivating in seclusion in a cave. He was absorbing the power of the heavenly Tao from this world, which was the will of the 10,000 scale monarch. However, the 10,000 scale monarch was already dead, so unless there were special circumstances, this person would probably be unable to advance further in his life. Han Fei couldn't help but wonder if the current sea realm was also a test subject of a certain cultivator. No one could become a god anymore in the sea realm. Could it be that the cultivator had perished? However, Han Fei smiled at the thought of that. How big was the sea realm? How big was it here? It was completely different. Even a god couldn't have created an origin star as huge as the sea realm. Since Luo Hao couldn't go any further, Han Fei didn't want to waste much time on him. Han Fei appeared silently behind Luo Hao, but he didn't notice him at all. Time retrospect. A blue light flashed in Han Fei's eyes. He traced Luo Hao's life. This person had spent 1,000 years cultivating since he was born. He was considered the most talented cultivator here. It had even taken Han Fei hundreds of years to reach the sea establishment realm. As for Luo Hao's life, it was also full of ups and downs. He had experienced thousands of disasters and countless opportunities to get to where he was today. In this small world, of course, Luo Hao didn't know that all of this was under the control of others. He just felt that he was lucky enough to get to where he was today. Soon, Han Fei realized that something was wrong with Luo Hao's cultivation. When Luo Hao was a venerable, he comprehended the so-called Great Tao here. Cultivating all 7 Taos at the same time, he was extremely talented. When he was in the sea establishment realm, Luo Hao comprehended a law, and his combat power soared. After thousands of battles, he began to fuse with the heavenly Tao. Yes, Luo Hao and the others didn't have their origin stars. They simply fused with the heavenly Tao. The way to fuse with the Tao was to assimilate oneself into this world and nourish one's body, bones, soul, meridians, and so on with the power of the law. In the later stages, which was equivalent to the later stages of the sea establishment realm, Tao fusion became a replacement process. He replaced his meridians with the power of the law and used the power of the law to reconstruct his flesh and bones. In the end, Luo Hao thought that he was the law and he was the world. Han Fei couldn't help but mutter, is this how the 10,000 scale monarch cultivates? Is this a great monarch's way to fuse with the Tao? Han Fei couldn't help but think of the green jade stone bridge. He had always suspected that although he hadn't begun to fuse with the Tao, the green jade stone bridge had already begun to do it. All the Taos he walked on had been absorbed by the green jade stone bridge. Therefore, by comparison, his path seemed to be different from that of the 10,000 scale monarch. But Han Fei didn't understand what the green jade stone bridge was exactly. Why could it also fuse with the Tao? Logically speaking, all cultivation methods had the same goals. If he cultivated step by step and took the same path as everyone else, he might end up on a cultivation path similar to Luo Hao's. Besides, one thing was fundamental. He cultivated the supreme divine technique of the human race. At present, he didn't even have a modified star except his origin star, so his path was fundamentally different from that of the 10,000 scale monarch. As if to confirm his thoughts, Han Fei stepped into the sky and arrived outside the star-sea quagmire of the 10,000 scale monarch. If the 10,000 scale monarch was still alive, Han Fei definitely couldn't cross the star-sea quagmire of a great monarch. But since he was dead, there was a chance to cross it. Han Fei took out the god-shattering scissors and slashed out the formless infinity sword. He rushed into the star-sea quagmire. Although he felt that there was a power in the sea of stars blocking him, the resistance was not very strong. Because the sea of stars was still that sea of stars, the resistance power of the sea of stars was limited. Han Fei found that even if he didn't use the god-shattering scissors and the formless infinity sword, he could still cross the star-sea quagmire. It seemed that he overestimated the star-sea quagmire. When he left the origin star of the 10,000 scale monarch, he was still a little shocked the next moment. With the origin star of the 10,000 scale monarch as the center, there were more than 810,000 kilometer-long modified stars surrounding the periphery. Further away, the number of modified stars exceeded 10,000. Han Fei counted, there were nearly 100,000 modified stars. Furthermore, these 100,000 stars were modified 100,000 stars. And the stars in the periphery that hadn't been modified were so many that they actually exceeded his perception range. *T. Although Han Fei had hunted some monarchs, he had never seen such a scene. One person could suppress 100,000 stars alone. Borrowing the power of 100,000 stars, was this the power of a great monarch? Apart from the 100,000 transformed stars, there might be 1,000,000 primitive dead stars. What the hell? Was this a galaxy? However, this was a good thing for him. It meant that he could harvest hundreds of thousands of stars at once. This amount of resources was comparable to what he could harvest by spending 100 years collecting other people's origin stars with the vast ocean navigator. This harvest was enough for the human race to cultivate for 100 years. The resource problem could be resolved all at once. To put it bluntly, he had made a fortune. Han Fei thought for a moment and then began to refine the stars. He started with the dead stars at the periphery, because they were the easiest to transform and refine. It wouldn't be a problem to refine 1,000 of them in a day. It took Han Fei 3 years to refine all the other stars except the origin star of the 10,000 scale monarch. 3 years later, the first phase of the human race's breakthrough tide had basically come to an end. In 3 years, the average strength of the human race had increased by 1.5 major areas. Of course, above the law enforcer realm, the increase in strength wasn't that much. It was roughly an average increase of 1 major realm. Even the venerable realm was an average increase of 2 minor realms. This opportunity for everyone to make a breakthrough was finally over. Even if there was a second breakthrough tide in the future, it wouldn't be so great. Although everyone's cultivation speed might still be fast, Han Fei didn't expect too much. It would be enough if they could improve by another major realm and a half. It was equivalent that the average strength of human beings would increase by 3 realms in 100 years. This was the highest expectation on this day, because all the other modified stars except the origin star of the 10,000 scale monarch had been refined by Han Fei. There was a problem with the origin star. The great Tao here was flowing away, the gravity changed. Natural disasters increased crazily, and the environment became quite harsh. Without the support of the 10,000 scale monarch, the heavenly Tao here began to become chaotic. It was under such circumstances that Luo Hao suddenly had an epiphany. Yes, Luo Hao seemed to have lost the restraints of this world. In this chaotic situation, he used the Tao he had fused to form an independent heavenly Tao. Independent of the heavenly Tao of this world. Huh? Han Fei couldn't help but ponder. Was it because Luo Hao had really comprehended it, or had he just reached the sky-opening realm through this abnormal method? Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Luo Hao laughed out loud. I've made a breakthrough. I've made a breakthrough. And become a god. I'm the only god in the world. I made it. I'd like to see what caused this chaos. Luo Hao stepped on the air and quickly found the star sea quagmire. However, Luo Hao was surprised to find a young man who was deep in thought. Here. Luo Hao's face changed slightly. Who are you? Luo Hao had a bad feeling. He thought that he was the first to become a god. But why was there someone else here? Could it be that this person had already become a god before him? Han Fei thought for a moment and said, "It's not easy for me to answer your question." In order to explain to Luo Hao who he was, he had to explain to him the existence of the 10,000 scale monarch, the system of the sea realm, and why the 10,000 scale monarch created them as his experimental products. Eventually, Han Fei said casually, "You can understand me as the ominous." The ominous? Luo Hao's face changed slightly. Were you the one who caused the change in the world and invaded our world? Sort of. Luo Hao said, "I've already become a god. This world is inviolable. If you leave now, I won't do anything to you. But if you refuse to leave, I'll kill you." Han Fei said leisurely, "Do you think I'm a sky fiend?" Luo Hao snorted coldly. "Isn't that so? The evil demons from outer space are ominous and wreak havoc in the world. Do you really think we 10,000 scale race are easy to bully?" Han Fei said, "Well, to be honest, the world you live in is about to end. That's bulls asterisk it. Laws, come. Some of the chaotic laws of the Great Tao were really controlled by this person and swept over." Huh? Han Fei raised his eyebrows. This person had only broken through to the sea establishment realm. Logically speaking, his strength was at most at the early stage of the sky-opening realm. However, the strength he showed had directly reached the late stage of the star transformation realm, or even the peak-level late-stage star transformation realm. Is this the difference between the divine realm and the great monarch realm? Even in this man-made world, a god-level existence can unleash extraordinary combat power and increase his strength by 10 times or even 100 times. It was also the first time that Luo Hao used his full strength. He had never felt so powerful. So what if he was a sky fiend? How could he be an enemy of this entire world? If he could, this world would have long been gone. The law turned into a fist and instantly arrived in front of Han Fei. Luo Hao had thought that even if his punch couldn't kill Han Fei, it would definitely heavily injure him. However, in the next moment, he was shocked to find that his terrifying fist mark was completely blocked by an invisible force half a foot in front of Han Fei. Han Fei extended his finger and pointed gently. Luo Hao's full blow was annihilated without even spreading out a ripple. How is that possible? Luo Hao was shocked. He was a god. He had cultivated his entire life and experienced countless difficulties. How could he be defeated so easily? At that moment, Luo Hao took out his life scale. His 7 Dao spun at the same time, turning into 7 law swords, spinning and attacking Han Fei. Kill. Well, this blow is as powerful as a perfected star transformation realm. Cultivator's attack. How can you become so much stronger? Han Fei reached out and grabbed the 7 law swords with one hand. He felt that this attack contained the power of laws. But theoretically speaking, Luo Hao had just entered the sky-opening realm. How could he be able to comprehend laws? Under Luo Hao's shocked gaze, Han Fei was observing his full blow. After a long while, Han Fei nodded slightly. The powers of laws are intertwining and fusing. It seems to have formed a brand new power. Is it will? No, is this divinity? Why was such a thing born? Is there no direct connection between the existence of divinity and strength? Han Fei couldn't help but think of what Jiang Linxian said. The divine realm was just a title. Even if the ancient humans weren't gods, they were no weaker than gods. Was it because they had divinity? At this moment, Han Fei frowned. How did you comprehend this power? Although Han Fei could roughly guess the type of this power, he still didn't understand how this power was born. Could he comprehend it after Dao fusion? However, that wasn't right. Most of the great monarchs had fused with the Dao. But he hadn't seen any of them give birth to divinity. Did it mean that this thing might be related to the user's will? Luo Hao's face changed drastically. This damn ominous was simply a terrifying powerhouse who had surpassed the divine realm. His first thought was certainly to run. Unfortunately, in Han Fei's presence, where could he run to? Han Fei grabbed the man with his hand and activated the soul-searching technique. Unfortunately, he couldn't understand Luo Hao's divinity at all. It was as if the man obtained it from an epiphany. Seeing that his soul-searching failed, Han Fei could only shake his head helplessly. Perhaps the 10,000 scale monarch would be more inspired if he were here. After all, he was the creator. Furthermore, if the 10,000 scale monarch could live to this moment, he might be able to find a way to become a god from Luo Hao. Unfortunately, he had already died. Bang! Han Fei crushed Luo Hao. Although he didn't understand Luo Hao's comprehension, he seemed to have roughly understood the conventional way to become a god. Although it wasn't suitable for him, it should be suitable for Neza and Zhang Daqian. With this in mind, Han Fei put on a smile. For the first time, he felt that becoming a god wasn't as difficult as he imagined. Although Han Fei had witnessed the god-making experiment of a low-level world, this was informative, but of no practical value. He believed that even if the 10,000 scale monarch was still alive and saw this scene, it was impossible for him to become a god immediately. He still had to study and analyze it and then conducted many experiments. However, since the experiment was successful, it represented the feasibility of this God-making plan. Han Fei couldn't help but sigh. Fortunately, he had killed the 10,000 scale monarch. If he had seen this scene, it probably wouldn't take long for him to become a god. Now that Han Fei had crushed this low-level world's god, Luo Hao, it was time to stop the experiment. The origin star, with a radius of 30 million kilometers, was quite important to him. Han Fei tried to refine it, but he failed after trying for more than 3 months. This was because the core of this huge star contained too many powers he was unfamiliar with. After thinking for a long time, Han Fei spent a month collecting all the resources on this star, leaving nothing except the star core. Then, Han Fei licked the corner of his mouth and went directly to the Sea of Stars. He set up an altar to contact the god of war. Could it be that the god of war couldn't eat the origin star of the great monarch, that he couldn't? Although the resources on the star had been plundered by him, the energy contained in the star core was definitely not small. However, he didn't have the corpse of the 10,000 scale monarch. There was no way to offer a sacrifice directly. He could only see if the god of war could use other methods to ascend this star. After a while, the fire curtain soared into the sky, and the god of war sent a message first. I heard that you've already proved Tao and killed dozens of monarchs. I asked the old man of the lava giant tribe to look for you for so long, but you didn't show up. Han Fei? So, in the 2 years when he wasn't in the human race, the elder of the lava giant tribe had already hooked up with the god of war? Han Fei said, I'm busy saving the human race. As soon as I finished my matters, I came to offer sacrifices to you. God of War asked, what are you offering? A peak-level late-stage star transformation realm cultivator? You killed so many monarchs, and you're only offering a sky-opening realm cultivator to me? Han Fei said, I sacrificed this sky-opener just to establish a connection with you. Although I killed many monarchs, I don't have their corpses. Now I have the origin star of a great monarch with a radius of 30 million kilometers. Can you come over and take it yourself? God of War, a great monarch? Keep bragging. Can you kill a great monarch even if your strength is increased by 100 times? Han Fei asked, huh? Didn't the elder of the lava giants tell you? Han Fei thought that the Grand Elder probably didn't tell everything to the God of War. That's right. The Grand Elder only had a preliminary connection with the God of War. There was no need to tell everything to the God of War. He had to tell the Grand Elder about this later. Since the God of War didn't know his true identity yet, he might as well not tell him. Han Fei said, didn't the Grand Elder say? I obtained the corpse of an ancient human powerhouse. With the only remaining drop of his essence blood, he easily killed the great monarch. God of War. ****. That little old man didn't believe me. I told my men to pick him up when he arrived in the West Wilderness, that old ****. Han Fei said, after all, he just contacted you, so it's normal for him to hold back. So, can you come and take away this great monarch's origin star? This star core contains many powerful laws. I can't move it anyway. If I leave it here, it won't take long for the star sea giant beasts to target it. The God of War said, sure. How about this? You find an enemy with a corpse, refine his origin star, refine it into a star bead, and throw it in the sea of stars outside the great monarch's origin star. Then you sacrifice that enemy to me. Huh? Han Fei suddenly realized that it did work, and it was a simple method. Han Fei said, "Your method is too simple, but it's very effective. In that case, can you return to the sea realm at will? As long as you refine a refined star and throw it in the sea realm, you can come back. God of War, it's not as simple as you think. I'm not going there myself. I can only temporarily open this connection point and bring the things over, but I can't leave." Han Fei frowned. "Are you trapped?" Only when he was trapped would his original body not come over. Otherwise, logically speaking, the God of War could definitely return. God of War, you don't understand. I'm in a very special place now. It's not that I can't go back, but once I leave, my hundreds of thousands of years of hard work will be for nothing. Han Fei raised his eyebrows. There's no rush. Why don't you tell me? God of War, it's useless to tell you now. When it's necessary, I'll tell you. Even if you don't want to know. Now, hurry up and do what I said. If there's anything, we'll talk later. Hearing what the God of War said, Han Fei didn't ask further. There were too many secrets in this world for him to know. According to the God of War, Han Fei quickly refined the origin star of a peak-level late-stage star transformation realm cultivator and threw it outside the origin star of the 10,000 scale monarch. After Han Fei made another sacrifice, this time, when the corpse of the peak-level late-stage star transformation realm cultivator disappeared, suddenly flames spewed out of the altar that Han Fei had set up, rolling out for a million kilometers. In the middle of the flames, a huge hole appeared. Upon seeing this, Han Fei immediately retreated. What the hell is this? Those who didn't know better would think that the chaotic fire sea had descended. Then, Han Fei saw a huge fish hook that was thousands of kilometers long shoot out of the flame hole and hook into the origin star of the 10,000 scale monarch through the star sea quagmire. Buzz. Upon seeing this, Han Fei's face changed slightly. He roared, "Wait a moment. Let me return to the sea realm first." In the blink of an eye, Han Fei had thought that he could use this opportunity to see what the God of War looked like. In this situation, the God of War was clearly trying to fish the star core of the 10,000 scale monarch over. With such violent fishing, even the origin star of the 10,000 scale monarch would definitely collapse. Therefore, Han Fei couldn't care less at this moment. He quickly rushed into the origin star of the 10,000 scale monarch. Guided by the vast ocean navigator, he slashed out a spatial crack and flashed in. At the last moment, Han Fei could still see the collapse of the heavenly Tao of the world, the shattering of all things, and the bulging of the earth as if billions of nuclear bombs were rumbling inside the star. In Han Fei's ear, a vigorous voice said, "Brat, you are too stingy. Did you really only leave me a core?" Han Fei said, "That's the star core of a great monarch. God of War, come to me in a month." Han Fei returned to the sea realm, and the voice of the God of War dissipated in his ears. The reason it took a month was probably that the God of War needed to digest and make use of this star core, so he didn't have time to talk to him for the time being. In the past month, Han Fei had been busy. He went to the origin star of Gao Yuhua, the guy who was sprayed to death by that ancient human powerhouse. His corpse was also gone. When Han Fei came to his origin star, he found that it was almost a sea of fire. Those who didn't know better would think that they had arrived in the primeval land. There were still hundreds of millions of fire spirits in the sea of fire, but these fire spirits could only be considered Earth-level existences. They weren't very strong, at most in the sea establishment realm. Obviously, Gao Yuhua was using fire techniques. He was also trying to create living beings, but his origin star was not that big. Its radius was only 3 million kilometers. However, this meant that at least when one reached the immortal level, their origin star could continue to expand. Otherwise, its maximum radius would only be 810,000 kilometers. Outside Gao Yuhua's star sea quagmire, there were only more than 8,000 modified stars, and no more than 50,000 dead stars. Each aspect of the star was much weaker than that of the 10,000 scale monarch. But even so, it was enough for Han Fei to work for a long time, at least for a month. Little Black and Little White ate as much as they wanted, and Han Fei refined the stars crazily every day. In the end, Han Fei spent a month, but didn't even finish refining 1/3 of Gao Yuhua's origin star. This made Han Fei sigh. Sometimes, even if there were resources all over the ground, one had to have the ability to pick them up. He had thought that he needed to empty the origin stars of 3 people every day, but it didn't seem to be the case at all. He had been picking up the resources on the origin star of the 10,000 scale monarch all the time. 4 years. It would take him at least 3 to 5 months to pick up all the resources of even an immortal level monarch's origin star. The resources he had picked up so far were enough for the entire human race to cultivate for 100 years. If they used them sparingly, it might even be enough for them to cultivate for 200 years. When the 1-month period was up, Han Fei set up the altar again. When the fire curtain soared into the sky, the message of the god of war had arrived. The instantaneous reply, no, the early reply, made Han Fei feel that the god of war was probably the only great monarch in the world who didn't care about face at all. The god of war said, Han Fei, you're really stingy. I heard that you killed 2 great monarchs. But all you did was sacrifice a bear star core for me. Come on, I'm your senior anyway, guiding you all the way forward, but you didn't remember me until you almost collected all the resources. Is that appropriate? Han Fei rolled his eyes and replied, there's one more origin star that I don't have the time to get for now. The place where the cultivator died is quite far away. Hey, even if it's only a star core, it's still the star core of a great monarch. Why do you act like you haven't eaten your fill for millions of years? How about this? Just tell me, is the origin star of a great monarch and its associated resources enough? The god of war instantly replied, it's enough for me to use for 500 years. Pfft. Han Fei was stunned and replied, wait. What the hell are you doing? That's the entire resources of a great monarch. But they're only enough for you to use for 500 years? Han Fei was crazy. Was this god of war bragging? God of war, I'll use them for recovery, so the consumption is fast. Han Fei asked, were you seriously injured? The god of war said, kinda. Someone from the wild ancient race in the west wilderness is offering sacrifices to me too, but it's not enough. At most, the sacrifices are in the sky-opening realm or something. Boy, if you give me the great monarch's origin star, I can fight for you when necessary. Han Fei asked, you can't come back, can you? How can you help me fight? God of war, I've recovered a little bit of my strength. It won't be a big problem for me to cast a projection over. Han Fei asked, can the projection have a mortal level strength? God of war, the great monarch realm, but you can't just leave me a star core. after harvesting all the resources. Han Fei, deal. In fact, Han Fei's need for resources was no longer so urgent. It was only in the first few hundred years after the human race came to the sea realm that he needed to provide them some help with resources. However, he couldn't help them all the time. Some things had to be fought for by them themselves. He helped them in the beginning because they had no power to protect themselves or source of resources. Their survival was completely unguaranteed, so he had no choice but to help them as the human emperor. However, after the human race's breakthrough tide, their overall strength would definitely improve greatly in 100 years. Then, he shouldn't give away resources for free. Unlike ordinary monarchs, he didn't need so many refined stars. What he lacked was trump cards. With a strong master like the god of war who could provide him with a trump card of the great monarch realm strength, it was worth it. Even if he had to exchange a great monarch's origin star for it. After all, that person was killed by the demon god, which was equivalent to obtaining this trump card for nothing. The god of war seemed quite excited. Among the many seedlings he had developed, Han Fei was the only one who was growing at an astonishing speed and killing enemies across realms as if it were a piece of cake for him. Now that it was inconvenient for him to move, he had to keep an eye on this little guy. Han Fei promised to offer the great monarch's origin star to the god of war within a year, and then he went offline. There was nothing special about him looking for the god of war. It was just that the star core of the 10,000 scale monarch couldn't be moved, and he didn't want to waste it, and the god of war happened to need it. That was all. After chatting with the god of war, it took Han Fei another 3 months to finally collect the resources on Gao Yu's origin star. The star core was sacrificed to the god of war in the same way. And this time, Han Fei didn't plan to continue to collect the resources on the origin stars of other monarchs, even if those origin stars might be targeted by star sea giant beasts. This was because Han Fei felt that he had to consolidate his cultivation. Ever since he proved Dao, he hadn't had time to consolidate his cultivation. After he proved Dao, he was busy with the human race's matters, building cities, setting up arrays, and collecting the resources on the origin star of the 10,000 scale monarch, which took him a lot of time. After leaving the origin star, Han Fei was about to go to Han Xian and tell him that he needed to cultivate in seclusion for a period of time. Han Fei habitually scanned the vast sea with his perception to prevent anyone from spying on the human race. Although Chu Hao was here, he was more at ease to check it with his own eyes. But in the next moment, he opened his mouth slightly, only to see a beautiful woman and a young man crossing the void and rushing towards the human race. Zhang Xuanyu? Senior sister, let me go back by myself, okay? You're not from our human race. After all, and you're so powerful. I'm afraid there will be some conflict. The woman said, what conflict can there be? I'm your senior sister. Can't you just introduce me to them? Besides, when we passed by the city of wanderers, they said that the human race is now guarded by strong masters. Although I'm not weak, I only have 5 Dao locks. Since I haven't proved my Dao yet, how can a monarch be afraid of me? Zhang Xuanyu put on a bitter face, secretly sighing that it was not a good thing for a man to be too handsome and capable. Fine, just let her follow me. What bad things can happen? Han Fei was amused to see this. He was not in a hurry to greet him. He thought to himself, why did you bring a woman back? Wouldn't your little wife explode? A moment later, before Zhang Xuanyu and his senior sister stepped into the range of the human race, they saw the Beast King silently blocking in front of them. The Beast King sized up Zhang Xuanyu and then looked at his senior sister. "Who are you? Why have you come to human territory?" Before Zhang Xuanyu could speak, his senior sister said, "I'm Reninging. Nice to meet you, Master Monarch. I'm just accompanying my junior brother back to his race." The Beast King nodded slightly. "Your soul power is very strong. You don't seem to be from the city of wanderers. But since you aren't from the city of wanderers, how do you know that humans have appeared in the chaotic wasteland?" Zhang Xuanyu said, "Well, Senior, I'm Zhang Xuanyu, the human emperor, Han Fei. And I are fellow disciples of the Thug Academy, and can be said to be brothers." When the heavenly cicadas sound resounded throughout the East Sea divine realm, I knew that Han Fei had already taken action. Back then, we went out of the raging sea together. Now he has started to take action against the 10,000 scales race. How can I not return to help him? Oh? The Beast King understood. You're from the Thug Academy? Then come with me. Let them acknowledge you. Another moment later. At the gate of the Thug Academy, Zhang Xuanyu said excitedly, "President Bai, Senior Brother Da Shui, Nan, Ling, Yuan, Daji, look who's back." For a moment, Old Bai and the others heard someone calling and looked at the door. Old Bai was delighted. "Oh, here comes another one." Old Bai asked, "Brat, where did you come back from? How did you know that we were out of the raging sea?" Seeing that, the Beast King left quietly. At this moment, a girl ran out, becoming a beautiful scene in the Thug Academy. Before she arrived, her voice had arrived. "Ah, darling, you're finally back. I missed you so much." Darling?" Ren Ying looked at Zhang Xuanyu in shock. "Junior brother, didn't you say that you don't have a wife?" Zhang Xuanyu's face stiffened. "Well." Puff. Yi Xian plunged into Zhang Xuanyu's arms, her little head nuzzling Zhang Xuanyu's chest as she cried out excitedly. This scene made Ren Ying's face turn green. Chu Jinnan and Ling Yuan had just arrived and saw this scene. Chu Jinnan was about to speak when Ling Yuan stopped him. Ling Yuan looked at Ren Ying and said in a low voice, "Let senior brother you solve it by himself." Su Daiji and the others arrived one after another. Then, they happened to hear Ren Ying say, "Junior brother you haven't answered my question." "Didn't you say that you don't have a wife?" Only then did Yi Xian notice that there were others. When she pulled her head out of Zhang Xuanyu's arms, she saw a cold and sexy woman looking at her with a green face. Yi Xian immediately understood and interrupted, "Darling, who is this auntie? Why is she back with you?" "Auntie?" Ren Ying was shocked and instantly infuriated. She gnashed her teeth and said, "Little girl, didn't your elders teach you how to speak? Try calling me that again?" "Auntie, auntie, auntie." Yi Xian didn't retreat at all. "You want to threaten me? Do you know who my eldest senior brother is? He's the current human emperor. He killed monarchs as easily as slaughtering fish and shrimp. If you threaten me again, believe it or not, I'll call my eldest senior brother." Han Fei, who was watching the show, couldn't help but feel embarrassed. This girl is not shy at all. What the hell is she talking about? Ren Ying was furious, but she knew that this was destined to be a war without smoke. Although this was someone else's territory, she couldn't admit defeat. She grabbed Zhang Xuanyu's arm and said, "Zhang Xuanyu is my junior brother. And my dual cultivation partner. As a sea establisher, what else can you do? Except hold him back?" Yi Shiyan hugged Zhang Xuanyu's other hand and snorted coldly. "Take your dirty hand away. I'm already calling him darling, so I'm definitely his wife. What's the big deal of dual cultivation? My husband can easily have 100 or 80 dual cultivation partners, but he only has one wife. Right, darling?" As she spoke, Yi Xinyan pinched the flesh on Zhang Xuanyu's arm hard. On the other side, Ren Yingying was also pinching Zhang Xuanyu's flesh as she said to Yi Xinyan tit for tat, "You're nothing but a burden. You can't keep up with junior brother You'd better let go. The two of you are too far apart. You won't be able to get together in the end." Yi Shiyan curled her lips. "Nonsense, I've only cultivated for less than 1,000 years and have already reached the intermediate sea establishment realm. As long as I'm willing, I can reach the peak level of the sea establishment realm in 100 years. In a few hundred years, it won't be a problem for me to open the sky. You're already an old ant. Look at the wrinkles on your face. How many tens of thousands of years old are you?" F***ck. Ren Yingying scoffed. "Wrinkles? You sharp-tongued little b***tch. You old auntie tens of thousands of years old." Beside him, Old Bai was scratching his face as if he was thinking about how to deal with this situation. Su Daiji, Gu Qi, Xing Yu, and Su Sanqian were all on Yi Shiyan's side. At this moment, they were all staring at Zhang Xuanyu angrily. Wang Dashui and Bai Lu had just seen this scene, and Wang Dashui was about to greet Zhang Xuanyu when Bai Lu stopped him. "Are you stupid? Can't you see what's happening over there?" When the two women were fighting, Zhang Xuanyu said timidly, "Well, can you stop for a moment?" "Shut up." The two girls shouted at Zhang Xuanyu angrily in unison. "All right, stop it, both of you," Zhang Xuanyu roared. His ears were ringing. He really should have snuck out himself. In particular, more and more disciples of the Thug Academy were watching. His role model image was gone. The two girls were stunned by Zhang Xuanyu's roar, but in the next moment, Yi Shiyan pouted. "Darling, why are you scolding me for an old auntie?" Ren Yingying shouted, "Junior brother why are you yelling at me?" Just when Zhang Xuanyu's head was dizzy, Han Fei thought that it was time for him to show up. Han Fei's figure appeared a few meters away from Zhang Xuanyu. Seeing this, the latter seemed to see a lifesaver. "Fei, you're finally here." Han Fei chuckled. "Tisk, tsk. You. Look what you've done." Seeing this, Ren Yingying immediately bowed and said, "Ren Yingying greets Master Human Emperor." Han Fei nodded slightly. "Welcome to the human race." Yi Shiyan looked at Han Fei angrily. "Eldest senior brother, didn't you say you would help me keep an eye on my husband? You didn't keep your word. Now this woman is bullying your dear junior sister." Han Fei was stunned by Yi Shiyan's question, and his air as the dignified human emperor was immediately gone. Han Fei paused and said, "When did I say I would keep an eye on your husband? For you? I don't have the time." Ren Yingying's eyes lit up, and Yi Xinyan's eyes welled up with tears. Han Fei. Hurriedly added, however, eldest senior brother will definitely uphold justice for you. Yi Shiyan's eyes lit up as her confidence returned. As for Ren Yingying, she was filled with worry. Han Fei looked at Zhang Xuanyu seriously and said, It's not that I want to criticize you, but we watched Yan Yan grow up. If you dare to fail her, it will be difficult for us to be brothers. Zhang Xuanyu nodded quickly. Yes, I won't. I definitely won't fail her. Han Fei looked at Ren Yingying and asked, when did you become dual cultivation partners? Although Han Fei didn't release any suppressing pressure, Ren Yingying felt inexplicably scared. She wanted to fool him, but she couldn't help but tell the truth. She said, we just haven't had a wedding, but everyone in the ghost straight knows my relationship with junior brother Yu. Oh. After all, you two haven't had a wedding. This girl and Yan Yan, after all, we're in public. How can we make such a scene? If the news gets out, how will outsiders look at our Thug Academy? Let go. Ren Yingying let go of her hand in fright. She knew Han Fei. When she heard about human Emperor Han Fei, she immediately thought of Han Fei, the disciple of the Void Temple, the man who won first place in the 100,000-year competition of the Divine Capital Dynasty. She couldn't afford to offend such a person. Although Yi Shiyan was unwilling, she still reluctantly let go because of Han Fei's words. Zhang Xuanyu cast a grateful look at Han Fei, and Han Fei glared back. All right, young lady, Zhang Xuanyu's choice is up to him. I think he will give you a clear answer. Of course, he can't abandon Yan Yan. Since you're here, you can stay at the Thug Academy for the time being. If you don't mind, you can give a few classes to the disciples of the Thug Academy, teaching them about the sea realm and the wilderness. What do you think, miss? Yi Shiyan opened her mouth and wanted to speak, but she choked back her words under Han Fei's gaze. Ren Yingying bowed slightly. Thank you, Master Human Emperor. I can teach here for the time being. Han Fei nodded slightly and then glanced at the other students. Dismiss. President, I have something to talk to Zhang Xuanyu in private. We'll come back for dinner. Old Bai nodded quickly. Okay, go ahead. Anyway, the Thug Academy is here and can't be moved away. I'll ask old Jiang to make a few dishes and make some dumplings. When you come back tonight, let's have a drink. Okay. No problem. A moment later, Han Fei and Zhang Xuanyu walked in the sky above the human cities. After a simple introduction of the battle, Han Fei said leisurely, all right. You are really cold-hearted. Yi Shiyan has been eagerly waiting for you to return, but you bring her your senior sister. You have to pacify her yourself. I can't do anything about it. Zhang Xuanyu said, do you think I want to? I had no choice. If she hadn't followed me, I wouldn't have had a chance to leave the ghost straight. Zhang Xuanyu suddenly changed the topic. Alas. We were separated less than 100 years ago. At that time, you were only in the peak level late stage star transformation realm, right? Have you already proven Dao? Zhang Xuanyu felt that his cultivation speed was fast enough, but he didn't expect Han Fei to be even faster than him. Some things have nothing to do with time. How long will you stay this time? Zhang Xuanyu said, I can only leave the ghost straight with the excuse of going out to gain experience and seek a breakthrough. I'll be back in about 10 years. Otherwise, I won't be able to come out again. Besides, I have a master in the Ghost Strait who hasn't taught me many major techniques yet. Han Fei nodded slightly. It doesn't matter when you leave. The point is that you have to arrange Yi Shiyan well. You can take her away or something. Anyway, you have to pacify her yourself. I don't have the time to do it for you. Zhang Xuanyu blushed. Okay. Any news on Quang Quang and Xiaobai? Han Fei told him about what happened to Lu Renquang, and Zhang Xuanyu immediately exclaimed, Quang Quang is going to prove Dao? Gosh, when we separated, this guy hadn't opened the sky yet. Han Fei said, he is a great monarch realm master who is as strong as great monarch East Marshal. Who in the Ghost Strait can compare to him? Zhang Xuanyu. Zhang Xuanyu hesitated for a long time and finally said, the fatty seems to be luckier than us since childhood. Han Fei nodded in agreement. I haven't heard from Xiaobai yet, but since you two are here, she must be on her way. You can stay here for a few years. Maybe we can meet again. Zhang Xuanyu said, all right, I'll leave some soul techniques to the human race. In the evening, Han Fei and Zhang Xuanyu returned to the Thug Academy for a meal. The only disharmony at the dinner table was that Zhang Xuanyu was sandwiched between the two women. There was no telling how he felt during the meal. The next day, Han Fei left Zhang Xuanyu alone. This guy was going to teach the human race soul techniques, which could make up for his shortcomings in this aspect. After all, he was a body refiner. Although his soul was powerful, he didn't leave many related inheritances. On Han Fei's origin star, he could finally stop and consolidate his realm. Huh? Han Fei could perceive the slightest change in his origin star. However, at this moment, a translucent black brocade sachet was hanging on the small vine of the demon purification pot. How could I have forgotten that? Back in the Dao Enlightenment Palace of the Divine Capital Dynasty, when the mysterious man helped him kill the ominous, he had left this brocade sachet to him. At that time, when he reunited with Shiman Linglan in the Time River, he was hurriedly sent back to the raging sea. Then, he went to the lava giants to take them away. After that, he was preparing for the human race's east expedition into the sea realm, so he didn't have the time to care about this. Han Fei didn't know why the demon purification pot hung the brocade sachet up, or if the brocade sachet ran over on its own. Anyway, Han Fei remembered that this thing was definitely not hanging on the small vine. Han Fei took off the brocade sachet and opened it without any hesitation. He was also very curious about who the one who helped him with the self-severing tribulation was and what the brocade sachet would tell him. The brocade sachet looked very ordinary. When it was opened, there was only a note inside. On it was written, "Death is not the end of life, but only means that the door of reincarnation has not been opened yet." Han Fei? Han Fei was dumbfounded. What did this mean? The literal meaning was that after death, life would still exist in a certain form. But what did this have to do with the door of reincarnation? The brocade sachet that the mysterious cultivator gave him couldn't be opened until he finished the self-severing tribulation. If he didn't finish it, the brocade sachet would automatically dissipate. If he opened this brocade sachet before finishing the self-severing tribulation and saw this sentence, would it be any different? If it was just this strange sentence, he could open it at any time, right? That was the problem. Would there be any changes after he read this sentence? Before he finished the self-severing tribulation? No, I can't be fooled like this. I still have to get to the bottom of it. Han Fei gave up the idea of consolidating his cultivation immediately, stepped out of the star-sea quagmire, and offered sacrifices to the god of war again. The god of war sent a message in advance. Is the great emperor's original star ready? Not yet. But I have a question that I need to ask you. The enthusiasm of the god of war immediately disappeared, and he only replied with 2 words, "What question?" Han Fei said, "Senior god of war, before I proved Tao and transcended the tribulation, someone helped me pass the self-severing tribulation in advance. Now I have an idea. What if I had failed to pass it?" Huh. Someone helped you with that? It seems that you have quite a powerful background. Han Fei said, "Senior, please be serious. This matter is very important to me." The god of war didn't beat around the bush and simply replied, "Normal people don't pass the self-severing tribulation until they are proving Tao. If you don't succeed in passing the self-severing tribulation, your negative side will dominate and turn into the ominous, and the original body will naturally be reduced to ashes by the tribulation. And a small number of people will pass the self-severing tribulation in advance. If they don't succeed, not only will their negative sides completely turn into the ominous, but they may also occupy the original bodies and deprive them of everything they have. There are pros and cons to everything. There are advantages to passing the self-severing tribulation in advance, so there are naturally disadvantages. That is, if your original body doesn't grow as fast as your negative side, it will be very dangerous." Han Fei's heart did a flip. Memories will also be stripped away? The god of war said, "Of course, everything you have will be occupied by the ominous. If you have some special purification-type treasures, they will automatically resist the ominous. But if they fail, they will only shatter." Han Fei instantly understood. The mysterious cultivator didn't let Han Fei see the brocade sachet before he passed the self-severing tribulation because he was afraid that if Han Fei failed to pass his self-severing tribulation, the contents of the brocade sachet would be seen by Han Fei's negative side. Death is not the end of life, but only means that the door of reincarnation has not been opened yet. Although Han Fei didn't know the meaning of this sentence, he knew that at least he couldn't let the ominous see it. But could he ask the god of war about it? Han Fei thought for a moment and refrained from asking. After all, he had never met the god of war in person, so his trust in him was definitely not as high as his fellow disciples in the Void Temple. He should ask his 5th senior brother. Oh, no, there was actually a more suitable person, senior brother Undead. Han Fei couldn't really experience death, or he would have to switch to becoming an undead creature. But what about senior brother Undead? Han Fei said, "Well, that's it. Wait for me for some time. When I'm done, I'll immediately find the origin star of that great monarch." Returning to his origin star, Han Fei didn't immediately contact his senior brothers. No matter what secret this sentence involved, it definitely required a certain level of strength to understand it. He had just proved Tao and his strength hadn't completely stabilized. It would be better to wait until his strength had increased by 5 times like Fengyu before he thought about this problem. Han Fei would naturally rely on the God-Fiend Formless technique and the Supreme Divine technique to stabilize his strength. The God-Fiend Formless technique and the Supreme Divine technique that focused on the physique could improve his strength by compressing his star core and extracting the power of other star cores to pour into his own. And he had the soul-sealing pearl, which contained nearly 500 origins of soul power, which was pure soul power taken from the soul sea. In this way, if he cultivated his body and soul at the same time, it would take at most 100 years to completely stabilize his cultivation when his star core was compressed to its current limit. Cultivation had no concept of time. Han Fei sat in his origin star for 100 years. In the past 100 years, Han Fei had shattered 10 origin stars of Tao provers. The star cores used by him, and the star fragments covered the surface of his origin star, forming an absolutely sealed superprotective layer. This made Han Fei's origin star look as if it had a radius of 2 million kilometers. This was only because his current capacity was limited. Otherwise, he could continue to expand his origin star with these star fragments. This made Han Fei wonder, could it be that the origin stars of Gao Yuhua and the others were also expanded like this? For this question, he specially asked the god of war, but the god of war's answer was very clear. He said that these were two forms, but their essence was the same. However, the origin stars condensed with the supreme divine technique were stronger. This was because the supreme divine technique used the powerful star core of the 810,000 kilometer origin star to support the star barrier that would be expanded later. And the strong masters who cultivated in the normal process were using more and more modified stars to expand the star barrier through their gravity and the transmission of chaotic energy. The two seem to be the same, but in terms of the ultimate power of the star core, normal cultivators' star cores were definitely not comparable to the star core cultivated with the supreme divine technique. Therefore, after hearing what the god of war said, Han Fei couldn't help but feel that he was quite powerful. Gao Yuhua was already an immortal level cultivator, but his origin star's radius was only 3 million kilometers. Now he was only at the Tao proving level, but his origin star's radius had already reached 2 million kilometers. There seemed to be much more room for his improvement than Gao Yuhua. On this day, the compression of the star core had almost reached its limit. It took 132 years, which was equivalent to half a year in the outside world. Yes, with abundant resources, Han Fei's cultivation was so fast. He couldn't help but look at his information, only to see that it was Owner, Han Fei. Level, 112, Tao Proving. Bloodline ranking among the clans in the Infinite Ocean, the 29,142nd. Immortal Chi, 420, 0. Soul, 317 origins. Strength, 317 star powers. First spiritual heritage, origin spiritual heritage. Second spiritual heritage, eternal darkness spiritual heritage. First spiritual beast, twin yin-yang sky swallowing fish, level 109. Second spiritual beast, the Emperor Sparrow, level 109. Main art, God-fiend formless technique. Huh? I upgraded by a level? Han Fei didn't expect this. He knew that his strength had definitely increased by 5 times, but he didn't expect it to increase by a small level. However, Han Fei wasn't intrigued at such a small level now. Although his soul and strength had increased respectively by 72 origins and 72 star powers, it was still far from enough compared to the strength of immortal-level monarchs. Furthermore, Han Fei discovered that although his flesh and bone hardness had improved significantly after the monarch tribulation, his body and bones couldn't support it at all with the 7-time enhancement of his original Great Tao. He had tried it. Now, he could forcibly increase his combat power by 4 times at most. Once he used more than 4 times his strength, his body would begin to collapse. The only thing that could still withstand it was his bloodline. He couldn't blame his monarch tribulation. The 4 times of his upper limit was nearly 1,300 star powers, which was 13 times stronger than when his 5 Dao locks were fully broken. Therefore, the improvement brought by his monarch tribulation was actually good enough. It could only be said that he had grown too fast. What Han Fei needed to do now was to fundamentally improve the strength of his bones, blood, and flesh. The first thing Han Fei thought of was the lightning drawing platform. When he transcended the monarch tribulation, the lightning drawing platform attracted a small amount of lightning tribulations, producing a total of 3 Dao, proving lightning strikes, including the one that came with the lightning drawing platform. There were a total of 4 lightning strikes. Han Fei felt that if he digested the 4 lightning strikes now, his physique would definitely become at least 10% stronger. However, this kind of enhancement was not a big deal now. What he wanted was not a 10% or 20% enhancement, but a multiple-time enhancement. And the way to completely change one's aptitude was naturally to transform his golden jade bone into the heavenly Dao jade essence. This was not a difficult way to understand. Merging the heavenly Dao into the bones and transforming the golden jade bone into the heavenly Dao jade marrow was the path one should take in the monarch realm. This path wasn't difficult. After all, there were many places where one could obtain the heavenly Dao jade marrow. But there weren't many heavenly Dao jade marrow that could really meet the requirements. For example, his golden jade bone had almost reached the limit, which was the manifestation of the extreme Dao. Similarly, there was a limit to the heavenly Dao jade marrow. However, fusing with the heavenly Dao was very friendly to those who had an origin ground. However, it was different for those who didn't have an origin ground. They had to forcefully absorb the power of the heavenly Dao. The efficiency of such a fusion was very low. The reason why the competition for origin grounds was so crazy was that after proving Dao, an origin ground could help cultivators continuously fuse with the heavenly Dao to boost his cultivation. But Han Fei couldn't. The power of the heavenly Dao in the raging sea was no longer enough for Han Fei to cultivate. If Han Fei wanted to quickly condense the heavenly Dao jade bone, he had to find a powerful origin ground. However, this was not a problem for him. This was because he had a ready-made origin ground in his hand, which was the reward of the 100,000-year competition of the divine capital dynasty. At this moment, the effects of all the hardships Han Fei had experienced in the sky-opening realm came out. In the sky-opening realm, he had collected a large number of treasures, resources, and connections. He was far from using them up. In fact, as far as the origin ground was concerned, the sea-quelling painting from the raging sea might contain more than one origin ground. However, he had to go to the place where the sea-quelling painting was originally drawn. If he had the time now, Han Fei felt that if he really spent hundreds of years, he might be able to get several origin grounds. As soon as Han Fei finished his cultivation, he stepped out of the star sea quagmire and entered the sea of stars. Then, Han Fei took out the bead that represented the origin ground, injected immortal qi into it, and began to refine it. This refinement didn't integrate the origin ground into his body, but opened a channel connecting to this origin ground, and this bead was that channel. After a while, when Han Fei refined the bead with a thought, a door to the void appeared in front of him. Buzz. Han Fei walked in without hesitation. The origin ground might be dangerous, but Han Fei believed that with his current strength, as long as the other party hadn't reached the immortal level, it was impossible for him to defeat him. Even if there were any immortal level powerhouses in the origin ground, they couldn't kill him instantly. After all, he was no longer that perfected star. Transformation Realm Cultivator. Huh? When Han Fei's eyes lit up, he looked at the mountains and rivers in shock. Why did this place look so familiar? Demon Domain? Han Fei raised his eyebrows. Yes, this place was the Demon Domain. However, the current Demon Domain was no longer polluted by the ominous. There were no longer those disgusting black tentacles or the strange and terrifying demonic sources here. The current Demon Domain had become a sea of demon plants. There were colorful flowers, giant trees that towered into the sky, fangrass that swayed with the wind, and fireflies that flew in the grass. Han Fei looked around and sensed that this place was like a demon plant planet that had never been cultivated. There were millions of types of demon plants, beautiful and enchanting. The only problem was that the levels of these demon plants were very low, so low that most of them couldn't be called demon plants, because many of them weren't even fishing masters. Huff. Han Fei didn't know until now that no wonder Great Monarch East Marshal used the Demon Domain as one of his tests. Because the Demon Domain was the final reward. Han Fei was still in a daze. In front of him, a phantom appeared in the air. It was a big sunflower that had once fought side by side with Han Fei. Han Fei immediately came back to his senses. Hi, Senior Dao Domain Sunflower. Head. The phantom of the sunflower swayed, and a void channel appeared. Come here. A clear voice came from the void passage. Han Fei didn't hesitate. Although the Dao Domain Sunflower Head was an immortal-level chaotic spiritual plant, its quality was definitely not bad. When Han Fei stepped into the void passage, he came to the world origin lake of the Demon Domain in the blink of an eye. This lake was 800 kilometers wide. At this moment, and in the middle of the lake, was the Dao Domain Sunflower Head. In Han Fei's eyes, information emerged. Name: Dao Domain Sunflower Head, weak. Introduction: The Dao Domain Sunflower Head is the head of a domain, a simulated body of world origin. When a world is strong enough, its world origin will give birth to an autonomous will and high-level intelligence. The Dao Domain Sunflower Head is the incarnation of the world origin of this world. It has unparalleled power of purification, life, healing, and will. Its sunflower seeds have various abilities such as Dao enlightenment, soul recovery, potential arousing, and purification of darkness. Level 1. Quality: chaotic spiritual plant. Realm: immortal level. Battle technique: annihilation sunflower seeds, light of purification, light of life, light of healing, light of soul. Collectible: Dao enlightenment sunflower seeds. Absorbable. Remarks: the head of a domain, and the simulated body of the world origin. Although Han Fei had already seen this information once, this time, the Dao Domain Sunflower Head had changed from a dying state to a weak state. This meant that this world was reviving at an incredible speed. The ethereal voice resounded above the world origin lake, clear and high. I've been waiting for you for a long time, but I didn't expect that when we met again, you had already proved Dao. The Dao Domain Sunflower Head sounded a little aggrieved. Han Fei replied, I didn't know that the origin ground turned out to be the Demon Domain. In just a few decades, I didn't expect the changes here to be so great. Senior, you consumed so much energy in that battle. Have you recovered? The big sunflower of the Dao Domain sunflower head swayed slightly. I haven't recovered yet, but with the help of you, I've recovered a little. Han Fei thought to himself, after all, she was an immortal-level powerhouse. Judging from her level, she was probably only one step away from the great monarch realm. With such strength, as long as she didn't have any natural enemies, she would naturally absorb the energy in the sea of stars and recover a lot in thousands of years. The help of the divine capital dynasty only accelerated the recovery here. Perhaps they felt that if the reward was the dilapidated demon realm, it would affect their prestige. Han Fei smiled. That's good. As he spoke, Han Fei had already looked around the World Origin Lake. The World Origin Lake was continuously absorbing the power of the great Tao from the outside world. Beside the lake were tens of thousands of strange demon plants that were being nurtured. There were probably hundreds of them, including those that had been newly born or had never died. In addition to these spiritual plants, in the lake, a small red carp stuck its head out and stared at Han Fei curiously. Han Fei knew this little thing. This was the true core of this world, the heart of the world origin. Dao Domain Sunflower had asked, since you proved Dao, why did you think of this place? Han Fei didn't hide it. He said, Senior, although I've already proved Tao, the power of the heavenly Tao in the place I proved Tao is thin and the world origin is exhausted. And I need to grow quickly and temper the heavenly Tao jade marrow bones, so I thought I still had an origin ground in my hand. Since this place is still recovering, I can think of other ways. However, Dao Domain Sunflower Head said, no need. The heavenly Tao here will cooperate with you. You need to condense the bones of the heavenly Tao jade marrow anyway. It's better to do it here. This is my choice. If I have to choose an ally I can trust and fight alongside me in the future, I can trust you. Han Fei's heart stirred. This was simply a blessing from the heavens. If it was an unfamiliar origin ground, he might have to fight, suppress, or even resist the world origin of that origin ground before he could use the power of that world to cultivate. Furthermore, ordinary origin grounds wouldn't have an immortal level cultivator guarding it. If there was really an immortal level cultivator guarding it, unless Han Fei called the senior brothers and sisters of the Void Temple to help him, he wouldn't be able to handle it himself. Therefore, since Dao Domain Sunflower Head had agreed, this place was his best choice. The efficiency of tempering the heavenly Tao jade marrow bones here would at least be hundreds of times higher than in the sea realm. This was the charm of origin grounds. Of all the Tao proving level cultivators he had encountered before, if they had had an opportunity to own the origin ground, how could they have been killed by him? However, when he came to the demon domain again, Han Fei wasn't just thinking about the heavenly Tao jade marrow bones. He said, Senior, are there still mainly loose living beings here? Yes. They're loose, but they're also individuals. The ominous infiltrated this place and used the loose Tao with evil thoughts. Gulp. Han Fei swallowed. This was a divine path, a very clear divine path. Han Fei had yearned for loose lives before. Suppose that ants were cells of life. The queen ant was the brain and the reproductive system. The soldier ants were the defense tissue of the body. The worker ants were cells, mouths, and hands that were used to find food. transmit food, and maintain the brain. When the worker ants gathered together to transport food, it was like blood transmitting nutrients. At the same time, the worker ants had many other functions, such as cultivating new living cells, young ants. In this way, the entire ant swarm was a complete life, a strange life called loose life. The reason why Han Fei said that this was a clear divine path was that he couldn't see the end of this path. As more and more loose individual cells or lives were scattered, it was easier for the loose life to transmit all kinds of energy and mobilize power. It was foreseeable that the one with the real body could become infinitely strong. This was an opportunity, a life system that Han Fei felt had a promising future. Han Fei said, "Senior, I have a presumptuous request." Dao Domain Sunflower Head asked, "What's the matter?" Han Fei took a deep breath and said, "Senior, I want to cultivate an avatar." An avatar, that is a loose living being. In addition to Neza, who was created with the lotus root body of water immortal, he also created Zhang Daqian, who walked the giant beast, divine Dao. With 1 into 3, deduced from the all things 3. As for the 1 into 3, it could completely separate a person into 3. Apart from the original body, it could create 2 avatars. Now, he could create another avatar. This time, he had too many resources, and his strength had reached the Dao proving level. He could completely create an avatar that could ignore the level barrier and heavenly tribulations with the bloodline and potential of the main body. In other words, he could directly create a monarch realm avatar. Of course, such an avatar would have a huge impact on his original body. If he wanted to create such an avatar, he might have to cut off at least 10% of his current strength. However, Han Fei didn't want to cut off so little. He wanted to cut off half of his strength. If he cut off half of his strength to create an avatar, this new avatar would be very strong from the very beginning. He didn't need to cultivate from a young age. Furthermore, once an avatar in the loose life form controlled a world like Dao Domain Sunflower Head, it would grow up very quickly. As for his original body, although his strength had been halved, he didn't lack resources at all. If he cultivated the Supreme Divine Technique and the God-Fiend Formless Technique at the same time, he would definitely return to his peak in 100 years. Anyway, the human race was still in the chaotic wasteland, and with the existence of fifth senior brother here, it could be said that the human race were absolutely safe. By the time he left the chaotic wasteland, he would have long recovered his peak combat power. Of course, if he wanted to directly create such an avatar, he needed the help of Dao Domain Sunflower Head. That was, he needed a drop of her essence blood to fuse with himself and create an avatar that ignored the upper limit of realms and didn't need to transcend the tribulation. Dao Domain Sunflower Head was silent for a moment. "Why do you cultivate?" Han Fei said, "I'm now the current human emperor. The 180 billion people of the entire human race need to rise under my lead. However, regardless of whether the human race rises or not, once the ominous descends, everything will eventually turn into a bubble. Therefore, whether I'm willing or not, I will inevitably fight against the ominous in the future." Seeing that Dao Domain Sunflower Head was silent for a long time, Han Fei continued, "I have another identity. I'm a disciple of one of the 3 temples, the Void Temple." The sunflower straightened up a little, and then a clear voice said, "Okay." Han Fei was overjoyed. Sure enough, the name of the Void Temple was more useful. "Dao Domain Sunflower Head, how do you need me to help you?" Han Fei cupped his hands. I need a drop of your essence blood. I have my ways to get other resources. Also, I'll create my avatar here. Senior, you don't have to worry that I'll do anything bad with this drop of essence blood. Dao Domain Sunflower Head, okay. Dao Domain Sunflower Head was straightforward. When she learned Han Fei's identity as a disciple of the Void Temple, she no longer hesitated. As for confirming the authenticity of Han Fei's words, she wasn't worried. This was because Han Fei still needed to cultivate in this world and use the power of the Heavenly Dao here to condense the Heavenly Dao jade marrow bones. When the Heavenly Dao fused with him, she would have a way to verify if what Han Fei said was true. After all, the Dao Domain Sunflower Head represented a large portion of the Heavenly Dao power in this world. In the middle of the big sunflower, a sunflower seed cracked, and a drop of dark green essence blood flew to Han Fei. Han Fei didn't think that his decision was hasty. He only knew that this was an opportunity. Previously, the demon domain had been ruled by the ominous, so he couldn't embark on the path of loose living beings. Now that the ominous had been purified and the Dao Domain Sunflower Head was recovering, this was an opportunity. Han Fei took out all the essence blood of the divine beasts and ferocious beasts he had obtained in the divine capital dynasty. A large amount of soul power surged out of the soul-sealing pearl. This loose living being didn't cultivate the God-fiend formless technique, but his soul power must be super strong. Otherwise, how could he achieve infinite control? Therefore, the soul that Han Fei cut off from himself was definitely not enough. He still needed the soul power in the soul-sealing pearl to help. Then, Han Fei unleashed all the immortal qi, which was continuously growing. He also slashed off part of his soul power, flesh and blood, and spiritual will. At that moment, in front of Dao Domain Sunflower Head, above the world origin lake of the demon domain, the wind and clouds were turbulent, and spiritual energy was surging. This was not enough. Han Fei took out the star pearls refined from the origin stars of 18 Dao provers. There were 30 level 9 minerals and 360 level 8 minerals. Seeing these resources, Dao Domain Sunflower Head was a little speechless. What kind of avatar did Han Fei want to create? The resources invested seemed to have completely exceeded the upper limit of his strength. In the end, Han Fei needed to choose the type of his avatar. First of all, it had to be a demon plant. It wasn't that other creatures weren't good, but that the longevity, growth speed, and escapability of demon plants were very strong. After all, demon plants could transform into countless ones. Even if he was killed in the end, as long as a blade of grass survived, it meant that he hadn't perished and could cultivate back. Take the demon domain as an example. The demon plants in the entire demon domain might be part of a loose life. Previously, the ominous had almost occupied the entire demon domain. However, in the end, once the Dao domain Sunflower Head destroyed the ominous and took back the control of the demon domain, she could recover at an unbelievable speed. As for which demon plant to choose, Han Fei closed his eyes and glanced around his origin star. Soon, he picked a few demon plants. One was dandelion, one was sky survey sisal, and the last was the most ordinary bamboo. Of the 3 demon plants, one was good at sowing seeds, one was good at attacking, and the last one was a bamboo. It was tough and could have many bamboo leaves. If used well, it could also be good at attacking. After some thought, Han Fei chose the bamboo. He didn't create this avatar to fight. His original body and Zhang Daqian could be said to be extremely good at fighting. However, he had an entire human race to protect now. What he needed most was tenacity and protection ability. Therefore, it only took Han Fei a short time to choose the most ordinary bamboo as his third avatar. Furthermore, the structure of the bamboo was simple, unlike the human body. That was too complicated and difficult to understand. Just like Zhang Daqian, Han Fei constructed an extremely complicated yin-yang millstone array in the bamboo to better absorb energy and resources in the future. In front of Han Fei, a bamboo shadow grew in the void. Whether it was his flesh, his soul, level 9 mineral, or those origin stars, they all turned into nothingness and were swallowed by the chaotic phantom in front of him. Next was the natural time needed to create an avatar. Han Fei's original body was pale. Cutting off 50% of his strength and soul had greatly damaged his vitality. He said to Dao Domain's Sunflower Head apologetically, "Senior, I need to cultivate in seclusion for a while." On the 100th day of Han Fei's seclusion, a green bamboo with golden threads appeared in midair. In Han Fei's eyes, information emerged. Name, Creation Star Bamboo, Avatar. Introduction: the chaotic spirit bamboo that appeared in the chaotic era is called the Creation Star Bamboo. Its characteristic is that the bamboo's body is abnormally tough, comparable to a chaotic spiritual treasure. The Creation Star Bamboo belongs to the demon plant lineage. It has an extremely powerful physique and soul. This bamboo is a mutated Creation Star Bamboo. It can be immune to all weapons below the spiritual treasure level. It can be immune to the soul attack of all creatures of the same realm, as it takes the loose Tao. Even if there is any residue of it, it can cultivate again and recreate. Glory. Level 1. Quality, Creation Level. Realm, Tao Proving Level. Battle Technique, Immune to Damage, Soul Attack, and Demon Plant Manipulation. Collectible None. Unabsorbable. Note: the Creation Star Bamboo was originally a kind of innate demon plant, but it was extinct in the primordial era. An innate demon plant? At the Tao Proving level at the very beginning? Han Fei was quite satisfied with the Creation Star Bamboo avatar he created. Although his strength had plummeted, so what? He would recover in less than 100 years. It was equivalent to spending 100 years to create an avatar at the Tao Proving level. Considering the Creation Star Bamboo's realm, he had clearly profited. The Tao Proving level? Is there such a technique in this world? Dao Domain Sunflower Head seemed to be stunned. Although she had seen Han Fei sacrifice so much and cut off so much of his strength, the avatar he created was ridiculously strong. Han Fei was actually quite surprised. He couldn't help but wonder if it was too early to use the great technique 1 into 3. If he took the giant beast Divine Tao now, he might be able to create a Monarch Realm giant beast avatar. Of course, Zhang Daqian took the Nirvana Divine Tao and needed to improve himself through death again and again. Cultivation from a young age was more meaningful. However, at this moment, he had created 2 avatars. If Han Fei wanted to use them again, he had to wait for his original body, Zhang Daqian, and the Creation Star Bamboo to reach the same realm. Only after the 3 were combined could he use the 1 into 3 technique again. Or after one of his avatars died, he could create another avatar. It was easy to die, but it was meaningless. As for the integration of the 3, the difficulty was extraordinary. At Present, Zhang Daqian's cultivation speed was still a little slow. Huff. Han Fei didn't think too much. He looked at the creation star bamboo and said, casually, since you're a loose life, I'll call you Han Song. The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up slightly. He cupped his hands at Dao Domain Sunflower Head and said, thank you for your help, Senior. I may need to cultivate in seclusion for a period of time. Please forgive me, Senior. The big sunflower swayed slightly, and her voice was clear and ethereal. I'll open a pure land for you to cultivate. 3 years later. After consuming a lot of resources, Han Fei managed to stabilize his current cultivation. On this day, after Han Fei fused with part of the heavenly Tao here, he knew that it was time to leave for the time being. In the past 3 years, he had used the heavenly Tao here to temper the heavenly Tao jade marrow bones just to make the Tao domain sunflower head believe him. Now, he should go out. After all, cultivating in his origin star for a year was equivalent to cultivating here for 256 years. It was more meaningful to him. Besides, he had a channel to the demon realm and could come in at any time. On Han Fei's origin star, Han Song, on the other hand, transformed into Han Fei's original appearance. Anyway, it was him. Han Song could temporarily replace him and occasionally guard the human race. It was the best of both worlds. In the chaotic wasteland, Ren Yingying was giving a lecture. Zhang Xuanyu seemed to have been wandering the human world these past few years, imparting techniques everywhere and experiencing the human world. Luo Xiaobai hadn't returned yet, but the sword god had returned, which was something Han Fei didn't expect. However, Han Fei didn't greet the sword god. He entered the human race as Han Song. However, before he approached, Chu Hao had already appeared opposite Han Fei. Chu Hao sized up Han Fei and asked, "Who are you?" Han Fei grinned. As expected of a great monarch-level powerhouse. Even though your strength has dropped so much, you can still recognize me. Chu Hao said, I sense the aura of a demon plant. Buzz. Han Fei's main body stepped out of the void world and said with a smile, this is my avatar. In the coming period of time, he will occasionally supervise the human race in my place. An avatar at the Tao proving level? You've just proved Tao yourself. Wait, your aura is unstable. Your strength seems to have plummeted. Chu Hao's eyes were sharp. He could see the problem with Han Fei at a glance. Han Fei smiled casually. There's a price to pay if I want to create such an avatar, so I'll have to cultivate in seclusion for a long time. But it doesn't matter. The avatar is also me. Our souls are connected, so all the decisions of the avatar are my own. As expected of someone from the Void Temple. I've never heard of such a method. Since your souls are connected, I won't say anything else. Speaking of which, how long do you plan to let the human race stay here? Han Fei said, for 100 years first. I have to go through the tidal wave first and then destroy the city of origin. After completing these two things, I'll have to leave. Chu Hao nodded slightly. Okay. But if you want the human race to temporarily have a great monarch-level powerhouse guarding it, you can consider helping me get more spring of life. Han Fei said, the heavenly race have 2 great monarchs guarding them. I can only say that I'll try my best, but it's definitely not something that can be done in the next 100 years. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, 4 years had passed. This year, Zhang Xuanyu was leaving, but Luo Xiaobai hadn't returned. Before Zhang Xuanyu left, he stuffed 2 space-time cultivation beads into Han Fei's hands and said, "Give these space-time cultivation beads to Xiaobai. Quang came and left earlier than me, and now that he's about to prove Dao, he probably won't need them. With the special care of the Ghost Strait, my cultivation speed is very fast, and it's only a matter of time before I enter the peak-level late-stage star transformation realm. As for Xiaobai, you know her personality. She hasn't returned for such a long time. Either she was delayed on the way, or she's not strong enough and is still on her way. But either way, she should need these 2 space-time cultivation beads more than me." Han Fei thought for a moment, took one of them, and said, "Trust me, as long as Xiaobai comes back, her cultivation speed will definitely not be slower than yours. The current human race is more suitable for her, so 1 bead is enough to represent your feelings. Although your cultivation speed is not slow, a space-time cultivation bead is equivalent to 500 years of time. With such a long time, if it's used appropriately, not to mention the peak-level late-stage star transformation realm, it's even possible for you to reach the perfected star transformation realm. Therefore, 1 bead should be enough for her." Zhang Xuanyu grinned and didn't refuse. "Okay. Well, by the way, can you help me take care of Yan Yan?" Han Fei asked in surprise. "You're not taking her with you?" "She didn't make a fuss?" Zhang Xuanyu said, "Of course she did, but the Ghost Strait is not our territory. The human race is about to rise, so it's better for her to stay in the human race. Even I will definitely come back after I prove Dao. As for the Sky Crater world, I might not go there." Han Fei raised his eyebrows. "She agreed so easily?" Zhang Xuanyu said with a dark face, "Of course not, so I gave her a baby." Pfft. Han Fei choked and looked at Zhang Xuanyu in shock. F***ck. You're awesome. Are you going to abandon the poor mother and her baby? The corners of Zhang Xuanyu's mouth twitched. "What do you mean by abandon?" "I'll be back." Han Fei asked, "What about Reninging?" Zhang Xuanyu said, "When I'm done, I'll bring her back with me." Han Fei took a deep look at Zhang Xuanyu and gave him a thumbs up. "You are really awesome." In fact, Han Fei knew that Zhang Xuanyu was a very conflicted person. Although this guy often seduced girls, generally speaking, he wouldn't get serious. This was related to Zhang Xuanyu's own experience. He didn't want to have too many attachments in this world, so when Han Fei heard that he gave Yi Shiyan a child, he was stunned. Or rather, Zhang Xuanyu had seen something clearly in the past few years when he was wandering in the human world. Han Fei didn't know what Zhang Xuanyu was thinking. As long as Yi Shiyan and Reninging were willing, it was none of his business. In the end, Han Fei gave Zhang Xuanyu nearly 10,000 modified stars. The human race needed strong masters now, and no matter how good Zhang Xuanyu's status in the Ghost Strait was, he couldn't have as many resources as him. Therefore, if he wanted Zhang Xuanyu to quickly prove Dao, he could just give him resources. About 8 years after Zhang Xuanyu left, the breakthrough tide of the human race was finally over. This breakthrough tide lasted about 15 years. The craziest period was the first 3 years, when the average strength of the human race increased by a major realm. In the following 12 years, the breakthrough rate dropped greatly, but it could be said that the human race's overall strength had increased by another major Realm. So far, the overall strength of the human race had stabilized and increased by about 2 major realms. This was a benefit given to the human race by the new environment. Of course, although it sounded rather intimidating that their overall strength had increased by 2 major realms, in fact, the improvement was much smaller than expected. According to the latest statistics compiled by Han Xian, the human race now had 1 monarch, 812 sky openers, 150,000 sea establishers, and an unprecedented peak in the number of venerables, reaching 130 million, more than 4 times higher than before. This was a great number. Logically speaking, it was impossible for there to only be tens of thousands of sea establishers. It was just that most people had just advanced to the venerable realm. Once these human venerables grew stronger, the number of sea establishers would soar like a rocket. It was only a matter of time for the human race to say 1 million sea establishers. As for the explorers, the number had reached a peak of more than 3 billion. There was no need to calculate the cultivators below the explorer realm. The total population in the dangling fisher realm, the hanging fisher realm, the hidden fisher realm, and the law enforcer realm was about 180 billion. The number was decreasing in the form of an upside-down pyramid. This was the human race, an ancient race that could win with population. From the chaotic era to the primordial era and the age of gods to this day, the human race had declined but never perished. As long as the human race didn't perish, as long as enough time was given to the human race, it would still return as a flourishing super race. This was only the beginning. Once the human race's inverted pyramid cultivation structure was completely stabilized, there would only be more and more sky openers, and monarchs would inevitably be born. At this moment, the 10-year deadline that Han Xian and Hong Yu had agreed on had passed. Han Xian found Gu Tingnan and An Bilan, who was controlled by Han Fei, and began a small-scale training plan. For the humans and the city of wanderers, they were training their soldiers. But for the city of origin, they thought this was a test from the humans and the city of wanderers. Now it was just a small-scale test, but there would definitely be a large-scale test in the future. But they had no choice but to delay. The only thing that made them feel lucky was that there was still a monarch in the city of origin. Of course, if they knew that this monarch was just a puppet, no one knew how they would react. Han Fei didn't care about this matter. He only told Han Xian to leave as many broken limbs as possible. Han Xian directly issued a point rule. Anyone who could obtain the enemy's body parts on the battlefield, be it broken limbs or weapons, could exchange them for points and resources. As soon as this rule was announced, many people's enthusiasm was ignited. Human beings were not short of belligerents, especially those body refiners who followed Han Fei's footsteps. They were in dire need of fighting. In the raging sea, there were still sea demons they could fight. But now in the chaotic wasteland, except for the so-called ominous creatures, they had no enemies at all, unless they went to the battlefield. As for the revived graveyards, because the number was limited, it was only provided for some elite cultivators. This made many people crazy to join the battlefield against the city of origin. Of course, some people were passionate about fighting, and there were also people who were passionate about life. Those who had ordinary cultivation potential, even though they had been transformed by the raging sea, devoted themselves to the construction of the cities. All kinds of businesses were popping up like mushrooms after the rain. As there were the most mining areas in the chaotic wasteland, these shops were mostly mineral and weapon shops. Some smart and stronger ones had even started trading with the City of Wanderers. However, the population of the City of Wanderers was too small compared to the human race. As a result, the merchants in the City of Wanderers discovered this and took the initiative to go to the human race's cities to do business. For example, the fat sapling creature who sold sweet pills was exhausted every day. This was because the sweet pills grew from themselves. If it weren't for the fact that the human race had a great spending power and spent a large amount of resources on them, these fat saplings would have died of exhaustion within 3 days in the human cities.